All right, I think we are connected now. Hello, hello, hello. If you're coming into the live, go ahead and give the live a thumbs up. Yes, give the live a thumbs up. Give the live a thumbs up. Like the live. Say hi in the comment section. Don't be here stalking me, okay? Don't come over here stalking your girl. Give the live a thumbs up. Give the live a thumbs up. And then also say hey, drop a question drop a hello in the comment section below, because we're not stalking each other here. There's a connection here, there's a relationship here, give and take. I know this live is long overdue, guys. I know it's long overdue, but I appreciate all the support you all have been giving me. I was supposed to do it last week Thursday, I believe, but then I had a I had a dental appointment, and I ended up receiving more numbing cream than I planned on getting, and it caused my face to become extremely numb. I could barely move a part of my face, so that's why I wasn't able to do the live last Thursday. So I do appreciate all the support. Forgive me for not showing up, but that's what happened. However, today I wanted to just do a quick impromptu live because I have the time, and at the end of the day, the content I share is for the most part evergreen anyway. So if you do catch the playback, please go ahead and leave a comment. Also give the video a thumbs up as well. So I appreciate you all for the support. But here we are. Today, what are we going to talk about? What are we talking about today? I do want to talk about becoming a flight attendant, how to become a flight attendant. And the main reason why I wanted to I wanted to have this live is just to share a little bit more information. I know I have a video, and I'm eventually going to leave a link on how to become that video in the description box of this video. However, I just wanted to do a live. That way, if you have any questions, you can ask me directly as well. So like I said, if you do come into the live, go ahead and drop a comment in the comment section, or not like the video. You're liking the video by default, okay? But if you have a question that you need answering, let me know in the comment section below as well. Okay, I have Lorena here. Well, hello, Lorena. How are you? I've been following for a few days now. Absolutely love your content and how real and honest you are. Thank you so much, Lorena. I try to be, because at the end of the day, when I was going through my process of my journey of becoming a flight attendant, because I had worked in several industries. Like, I have been working. Your girl has been around, okay? I have been around, and when I was transitioning to become a flight attendant, I'm on camera now, so you guys are gonna see me a little bit here and there. Before I share my story though, let me just say, disclaimer, the opinions and the thoughts shared in this video are solely my opinion. I am not representing any organization here. I am not here for no one but myself and my people, okay? So yes, that's where we are with that. Sorry about that. This camera is doing the most right now. I have no idea what's going on with my camera, but it is definitely doing the most. Oh my God, I can't with this camera right now. I think I just need to throw the whole camera away. But yes, the opinions shared in this video are solely my opinion. I am not representing any organization or any company right now. Okay, let's get that straight. But yes, Lorena, back to your point. The reason why I'm super honest and very real is the fact that when I was transitioning to becoming a flight attendant, this camera would not let me succeed, but we're just going to keep it the way it is. When I was transitioning, becoming a flight attendant, it got to a point where I needed information. I needed content on how to become a flight attendant. And honestly, not to say that the people that were sharing it were not sharing the information they should have been sharing. It was because the process was very complicated, Hey David. Hello, David from UK. How is the UK? I was just in Amsterdam literally 2 days ago, I believe. Yeah, I was in Amsterdam 2 days ago. The weather was amazing though. So yes, back to my point. So when I was going through the process of transitioning to become a flight attendant, as I did my research to get more information, it definitely became more harder and harder trying to get a wholesome content related to the process, not necessarily to give me answers to like questions or the tea on exactly what the content for training was about per se, but just some sort of direction, because when you're going through the process with your organization, they rarely keep you updated or give you information as to what the next steps would be. Yep. So because of that, my goal for my channel primarily was to provide you all with that one-stop shop where you get from beginning till the end information or details on how you can potentially go through the process and what to expect moving on and stuff like that. So that was the whole point when I started. Also, while during the live, if you lose connection or if you can't hear me, please let me know in the comment section below as well. I would appreciate that. But yeah, so that's the reason why I started the channel and why I try to be as honest and as open as possible, just to make the whole process easy for everybody. But back to the point that I was sharing. Like I said, in today's video, I do want to talk about how to become a flight attendant. If you're planning on becoming a flight attendant, some of the things to consider, and then also moving forward, once you start the process, just how that goes. Once again, if you do have a question, drop it in the comment section below. If you're just coming into the live also, go ahead and leave your questions in the comment section in the chat as well. Say hello. We're not stalking each other here. So let's get it together. Say hello when you come in, okay? Also, let me see. The chat is not moving, but I'm assuming everything is okay. So if I'm frozen or something is wrong, please let me know. Please let me know. Let me know if you can hear me. For whatever reason, my connection is not... it's not showing properly. So let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if the sound is good and everything. All right, so moving on from there, before I do proceed also, you all know the airline that I work for at this point. If you don't, I don't know what else to say or what else to show. But the reason why I'm saying that is because I do want to create a members only, like, you know how YouTube has a way for you to become a member of a channel where we can have like exclusive chats and exclusive videos and stuff like that? I do want to do something like that as well. So if you do join my channel or you become a member of my channel, the whole goal of that process is that I do want to potentially create like exclusive content where we can have like exclusive chats and stuff like that, where I actually share exclusive content on stuff or issues that I might not necessarily be able to say out in the open like I am when I create my content right now. So that's the whole goal of that. I do have a video that I'm gonna put on the screen eventually once I get my computer situation to figure. I don't know what's going on today. Today is just not the day. Like I'm trying to be successful here, but the system is not letting me be. The system is not letting me be right now. So let me just close up a few things here just to get myself situated, because I don't know what is happening right now. So yes, do become a member. If you visit my page, if you visit my channel on a desktop, you should see the button join. It will say join on the top. If you're facing your screen, it will be on the top right corner. Also, if you are on your mobile phone and you go to my page, you would see a link right underneath my description, and that would also give you access to, or take you to a screen where you can tap on to be able to join and become a member as well. But yes, let's move into it. What you need to do, or what you want to become a flight attendant, how to become a flight attendant. Somebody asked me this question and wanted to know the process. Honestly, first of all, there has to be the interest in becoming a flight attendant. And I know people become flight attendants for different reasons. Some people might do it because they want to be able to travel the world, go to diverse destinations and experience different cultures and travel as much as they can with their families and friends. And all that is beautiful. All that sounds great. All that sounds amazing. However, me see. Give me a quick second. Can you all see me? Can I have somebody just drop in the comment section below? Let me know if you can not see me, if you can hear me. Kindly let me know if you can hear me. Kindly let me know if you can hear me, please. Thank you. So yes, for several reasons. Others just want the money because they've heard the pay is good, even though most people say the pay is not good. But flow with me here, okay? But yes, the whole point is that people want to become flight attendants for several various reasons. And at the end of the day, whatever your reason may be, you have to ask yourself you have to ask yourself how valuable that is to you, and if you're willing to give your all just to make that happen, because eventually that will become your why. Because trust me, trust and believe that becoming a flight attendant is not an easy journey. It is not a simple journey. I'm not trying to be dramatic here. Like, I am not trying to be dramatic, but it is definitely not an easy task at all. It is not an easy task at all. So this is what I was talking about before I move on with the point I was making. Become a member of my channel, because I do want to be able to have exclusive chats where people can ask me actual, like, personal direct questions that I can, like, truly honestly answer and be, like, real, because at the end of the day, I can only be as real and honest as the public forum may allow me to be, you know. But it won't be like you and your friend like chit-chatting somewhere behind the galley or somewhere in your like lunch over coffee or something. So I do want to have like exclusive videos that I would do for my members, so do become a member of my channel. Thank you, Sharia. You can hear me loud and clear. Perfect. All right, okay, so I'm good to go. So yes, become a member, support the channel, join the channel, and become a member. And this video shows you how you can do so. But like I was saying, you identify the reason why you want to become a flight attendant will eventually become your why. And as I stated, becoming a flight attendant is not easy. The process is not like, I've worked in so many industries. I've worked in the health industry, I've worked in the financial industry, I've worked in the retail industry, and I've done e-commerce as well. And what I can say is that so far, even when I became a manager and I eventually got to the point where I became a manager at Amazon, like, this becoming a flight attendant has been the hardest thing that I've had to do when it comes to my career per se. So it's not easy, and you are definitely going to need a why, and that why will keep you going when it gets harder or difficult. I'm not saying this to scare anybody, but then I'm just being honest, because at the end of the day, it's not an easy process. So once you identify the reason why you want to become a flight attendant, you can then move on to do your research with regards to the airlines you want to work for. There's so many airline companies in the world as a whole, and the good thing about the job is that you're not limited to where you live. If you want to become a flight attendant in Dubai, for example, I believe Emirates should have a base there, because that's where you're going to live or be resident if you decide to work with Emirates as a flight attendant or a flight crew member or air hostess, however they're referred to in your country. You're not limited. That's the thing about the job. It's like the world is literally at your fingertips or at your disposal. But you have to do your research with the airline companies that you want to work for. I have a friend, for example, shout out to my friend who works with this airline. She works with Qatar, for example. And with that airline company, for example, you have to live at base. And their base is at Qatar. So if wherever she lived in the world, she had to relocate to live there, you know. And for me also, at some point when I was in the university, I almost worked with Emirates as well, where I did my research to find out what the pay was, and then also essentially what the requirements were. And when I looked into it, essentially I had to live at base. I would have lived in Dubai. So at that time I was living in Ghana, because that's where I'm primarily from. I was living in Ghana, and then I did the research, and they were like, okay, so the whole point is that I had to live in Dubai, and 30 days every year, you would get 30 days where you can go back and go to your home country and visit your friends and family or whatever. That's 30, like a whole entire month out of the year that you can take off a vacation or time, go back to your home country to visit. So you have to look at all these things. Some, like the company that I work for example, you have to be able to have a permit to work in the United States. So if you apply to my airlines, you should be able to legally work in the United States, or you won't be able to apply, or you won't be able to even go through the process because they don't offer sponsorship. Some companies offer sponsorship where they would deal with the paperwork and everything that allows it for you to be legal to work in the United States. My airline company currently does not offer that. If you do see this video in the future and they are now offering it, please leave it let me know in the comment section below. Let us know. But right now they don't do those things for anybody. So you can literally live in India, right, and apply to work with the airline company that I work for. However, you should be legally authorized to work for a United States company or to work in the United States, even if you're going to be based anywhere else aside from the United States. So keep that in mind. So do your research with the airline. Once again, when I say do your research with the airline, see if their mission, their goals aligns with yours. Like, how is diversity? How is inclusion? If those things matter to you, find out if it aligns with what your goals are. Don't just become a flight attendant with any company simply because you want to become a flight attendant. So keep that in mind. The other thing also is that figure out what bases these companies have. So for me, using myself as an example, when I decided to become a flight attendant, I live in Seattle, Washington State. So my goal was that whatever airline that I applied to or I worked for, I wanted the situation whereby even if out of training I'm not assigned a base in where I live, eventually I have the potential to be able to move there or to get reassigned to that base. So I wanted to make sure that where I primarily live, there was a base near or there. So that was a huge deciding factor for me. Secondly, I wanted an airline company that actually had routes that went in and out of my home country as well. So unlike somebody whose goal would just primarily be based on the destinations, the layover destinations that they can visit. Because my airline, for example, has a diverse portfolio with regards to the layover destinations or the countries that we travel in and out of. So if somebody's focus is that, then they might potentially apply to my airline, which is a U.S. mainline compared to a regional. But for me, like I said, first option was having a base where I lived. Secondly was also the fact that I wanted an airline company that flew to my home country. So this airline actually checked all boxes, and here we are working with them right now. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out this camera situation. I don't know what is going on right now. Too much is going on in the world right now. It is stressing me out. Okay, so where was I? So yes, that was the main deciding factor for me. So if you live somewhere and you would like, or you would want the airline that you work for to be able to fly in and out of your country where you're from, that's perfectly fine. Remember that even though you are going to be working for an airline company, you might potentially be based, let's say, in Seattle. You can live in Mexico. You can live somewhere in South America. You can live somewhere in Europe. I can literally live in Europe and be based in New York or Boston. So you're not limited, okay? So keep that in mind. That's the benefit of this job. That's one of the huge benefits of this job. So the camera should be back on eventually so you all can see me a little bit, but like I said in the beginning, my opinions in this video are my opinion, okay? I am not representing anybody here. Regardless of what you can see, I am not representing anybody. So yes, I'm doing your research and making sure that the airline that you want to work for has a base where you live or somewhere close that you can fly to. Personally, for me, because I'm from Ghana, eventually I want to get to the point where I might potentially be able to move and live back in Ghana, and then probably be based in New York and just commute from Ghana to New York to work. So that's the dream. Let's see if we can make it work. The whole idea behind that is because the standard of living is different. So then you can actually benefit because you're getting paid as though you live in the US, even though you live outside the US. So that's something to consider as well. But moving on, once you do your research on the airline companies that are available around you or near you or whatever, and before I move on to the next point, the reason why I talk about that is because depending on where you are, your access or your ability to apply to certain airline companies might be impacted. So I know people that usually lived in Ghana. Even when I lived in Ghana, when I was considering becoming a flight attendant, my honestly, my only potential options or like real shot at it would have been airline companies in the Middle East, because they were willing to actually go to these countries and actually hire people, take people through the hiring process, and then move them to where they wanted them to be based, among other things. But honestly, there are some good and bad to all that experience. And depending on where your airline is based, certain laws, certain rules may apply or may not apply. So please do your research. Like I said, I do plan on doing like exclusive member videos where we can actually talk about the real tea, things that, you know, the real. Like I'm real, but there's layers to this, okay? There are layers to this, and I have heard some interesting stories when it comes to going through training, applying with certain airline companies, and some of the conditions that people are put under. So it's scary out here in these streets. So just be careful as well. But then that being said, that's what that point was referring to. The other thing also is just figuring out whether you want to become a mainline, corporate, or regional airline. Like I said, I'm with a mainline airline company. Some people have been regional for years. Others have been mainline for years. Others have been doing corporate for some time. So at the end of the day, the reason why these things are important, mainly, especially if you're trying to become a flight attendant and you're watching this live or this video, is that it impacts your pay. So if you're working with corporate, you're potentially going to be paid a lot more than somebody who's working in mainline. And somebody mainline is obviously earning more than somebody who's working regional. However, remember that the higher the pay, the higher the responsibility, the higher the expectations. So although we might all potentially be doing the same thing, there might be additional responsibilities that might differ depending on which tier you're associated with. For example, I have heard situations whereby even though I'm mainline, other airlines, not even mainline. Let me just use an example with the airlines and the services that the flight attendants offer. For example, some airlines in the Middle East, for example, on the plane, unlike us in the US here, where we are cooking the meals, we are making sure the labs are tidy while we're in flight, among other things, some airlines have designated individuals who are hired to do that job. Yes, so there's a cook and there's a bathroom or whatever cleaner situation going on. So as a flight attendant, your main goal or responsibility beyond safety is to provide a great customer experience, you know? So then you have the time to be able to focus on that customer interaction that everybody finds so important and so valuable. But with us, it's not like that. So you're getting the meals ready, you're serving it, you're doing those customer interactions, among other things. So it differs. So potentially you being somewhere else, you might think, oh, US flight attendants are getting paid a lot more, but then also try and match the responsibilities and the expectations as well, because it's greatly different. So keep that in mind. And then also back to the point about being corporate or commercial or mainline or regional. The whole point is that regionals typically fly like smaller planes and stuff like that. So there are lesser number of customers that you have to deal with. And like I said, they are like the connection between the mainline and other parts of the country or the world in this case. Plus, with regards to mainline, we have a lot more diverse destinations that we fly to. We fly out of the country, out of the states. So it definitely exposes you to a bigger world. So just figure out what works for you. One thing I will say is, if you're planning on becoming a flight attendant, don't become regional simply because your friend is working with a regional airline company. Don't go to mainline simply because your friend, somebody is there and they told you was. Do a thorough research and see what will work best for you. If money is a driving factor, then you potentially should go to a mainline or corporate, because mainline, usually I think corporate requires you to have some experience already. So mainline honestly would be your best bet because the pay is much better. Even within mainline, there are pay variations, so you do have to do your research to see which airline is paying the most. And when you're doing the pay research, don't focus only on the hourly pay. Most of like the airline pay structure for flight attendants is very public. It is public information. So go online and do a thorough research. There's literally a line, I think it's flight. I will leave a link in the description box, but it's flight something where they have like a whole table where they would compare, show you the pay structure for each airline in the US side by side. And it includes everything because, as I've said, the pay structure for flight attendants is very complex and there's so many components to it. And that website literally has that information there for you from start to finish. It covers everything. All I'm going to say is when you're doing your pay research, do not focus only on the hourly pay, because the hourly pay is like, it's a core factor of the entire pay structure. However, it's minute in the sense that there's so many additional pay factors or factors that can influence your pay. So think about that. Don't just focus on the fact that, oh, they're paying $34 an hour, so let's go with them. No, there might be other things that might potentially limit you or restrict you when it comes to your pay, or might confine how much your potential earning may be. So keep that in mind. Also, the other thing to consider is the routes that the airline company flies to. So if you're looking to explore the world, like I said in the beginning of the video, maybe the reason your why to becoming a flight attendant is to explore the world, travel around the world. If you end up with a regional airline, you might potentially be limited as to the places you can go. There are airline companies, for example, in the Middle East that only fly international. So even if you're a new flight attendant, automatically your routes are going to be international routes. So if all you want to do is international destinations all over the world, then you might potentially consider working with those airline companies because all they do is international. So if you don't want to do domestic at all, like for you, you're literally allergic to domestic flights, then you should potentially consider working with those airlines because all they do is international flights, you know? So you have to consider that. The other thing also is that if, let's say, you live in Mexico or you live in Brazil, somewhere in South America or somewhere in Africa like me, I'm from Ghana, maybe you live in Nigeria, somewhere else, you live in Europe, you live in the UK, Amsterdam, somewhere outside of the United States, you also have to look into the fact that if I live in the UK and I don't want to relocate, does the airline company that I'm applying to fly in and out of the UK? Because if you have to commute, you have to make sure that there are flights that go in and out of your home airport, or it will be unbearable. You won't be able to do it. So keep that in mind as well. If you only care about the money and not necessarily the destinations that you're flying to, then that is not a factor for you. So you should be fine. The other thing that people do talk about also is unions and stuff like that, among other things. Personally, I've never worked with a company where I have been part of a union, so I can't speak to it, whether it's beneficial or not. I don't know. I haven't done the research on it. But if that is a huge factor for you or is very important for you, then you also have to make sure that you find out which airline companies are part of unions and which ones are not. That way it can help you decide as well. Also, one thing to note also is that you need to have a passport already. Airline companies, at least with the airline companies that I know or the one that I work for, when you're applying to become a flight attendant, they don't start off by getting you a passport. That is something you have to acquire on your own. That is your responsibility. So keep that in mind. So don't expect no airline company to be giving you a passport or making a passport for you. That's something you have to do on your own. If there are others out there that do, let me know in the comment section below as well. If you are joining this live right now, go ahead and say hello. Don't stalk me. just say hello, drop hello in the comment section below. If you do have a question also, let me know in the comment section below as well. Before I move on to my next point, I believe I posted something in my community page, and I did get somebody ask a question. They did post their question, so let me just look for that question real quick and respond to it. Once again, thank you all so much for supporting the channel. My growth has been pretty quick, honestly. I mean, it's not been dramatically quick, but I've only been here, or I've been doing this channel for just 6 months, and I'm already getting to the point where it's actually becoming beneficial to me. So I do definitely appreciate you all for the support. I definitely appreciate that. So when I posted that people, you guys should just ask me your questions, or drop your questions in the comment section below. I had someone, I think it's Momo I think it's Momo. I think that's what it is. That's what their name is. They said how to find a place to live on a new flight attendant salary. Are crash pads safe, and the way to go or not? So first of all, new flight attendant salary. Remember, Shario says, hey, what's going on? How is the flight attendant life treating you? Got it. I'll respond to that soon after I'm done with Momo. So new flight attendant salary. I will say that because of the way our pay structure is and how we're scheduled, unlike a typical 9 to 5 where you're doing what you're expected to do, if you're full-time, you do 160 hours a month, 80 hours every 2 weeks. So let's say you're doing 160 hours a month by your base pay, which is about $34. That will put you at about $5,440, right? Before tax. So that's you doing 160 hours a month with my hourly pay as a flight attendant. That's $5,000, $440 before tax. Obviously, after tax, after medical health deductions, 401k, all that nonsense, you might potentially end up taking home about $49, depending on how your deductions may go, right? So that's how much you're going to make. However, I can confidently tell you that I have worked a month where I did only 110 hours and I earned more than this amount. So when I did my $33 or $34 by the 160 hours for the month for a typical 9 to 5 job, that brought me to $5,440. But I believe one of the months, I think it was last month or last 2 months, I did $5,700 and something, and I only worked 110 hours. So that should tell you that there's so many other components to our pay that causes that hourly pay to actually become beneficial or meaningful. So with regards to being a new flight attendant and being able to live off of your salary, personally, I think you can, because I do. I am able to do so because my rent, for example, for the apartment that I live in is $1,800, right? So if I'm paying $1,800 a month on a new flight attendant salary, obviously that's like almost $2,000 right there, before your car insurance, your other deductibles, among other things. I feel like you can live with, especially with the airline company that I work for. And I'm not going to make a generalized statement because our pay is the highest, I believe, currently for mainline airlines. So we're definitely getting paid premium pay or high pay. So my situation would be different from somebody who is a regional airline or works with another mainline airline that doesn't pay as high as my airline pays. But what I can say is it depends on the standard of living of where you're based. So Seattle, if you live in Seattle, our standard of living is a little bit higher. Rent is quite expensive. The apartment that I'm paying $1,800 for somewhere in Houston, Texas, that $1,800 can literally get me like a whole situation, like a condo. So it depends on where you're living, okay? It depends on where you're living. And then secondly, you're spending. Like if you're out there living the big life and not meal prepping and not saving as you should, you might potentially end up overspending and that pay might not be enough for you. The other thing that might influence your pay is also if you're commuting as well. If you're commuting, that's a whole different ballgame altogether, because you can't necessarily meal prep the way you want to, especially if you don't have a crash pad or a place to stay when you get to your base. So that alone is a huge factor. And I cannot stress this enough. If you have the ability not to commute, take it. Don't, like, I had the ability to get assigned New York base, and I really wanted New York because of how close it was to Ghana or to home to me. But if I do the math and I look at the time that will be involved from me commuting every single time from Seattle to New York, it won't make the job worth it for me. Because if you're commuting, that influences, aside from your pay, not necessarily that you're going to get paid less or not. It just means that your expenses become more compared to somebody who lives at base. So aside from it impacting your money, it also impacts the way your work life and how you actually enjoy the job. Because imagine working a long 3-day, like a 21 hour 3-day trip, for example. You're exhausted and tired, only for you to be sent back to your base, for you to get on another flight, because you probably live in Atlanta, you're based in Seattle. So you do a full 3-day trip, exhausted as hell, because sometimes these trips can be exhausting, okay? They can be exhausted. The job is not hard, but then the fact that you're mentally involved, you're physically engaged, it can be exhausting. Plus a 3-day trip, you probably miss home or something. But only for you to get to Seattle, only to get on another flight because you're commuting back home, to get on a 4-hour flight just to go back home. Let me tell you something. If, like, whether you're working a flight or you're commuting, which is you're on it as a passenger, the pressures of the changes in the altitude and the takeoff and the landing, all that impacts you the same. So although you're probably sleeping as you're commuting home, it's still very much exhausting. So keep that in mind. That's why people would argue that commuting is literally like another job. Like it's like you have 2 jobs. One pays you and one doesn't. That's how it feels. So if you can avoid commuting, please take it. Because I really wanted New York. But then once I did the math, I already have an apartment here. If I do get based in New York, I have to get a crash pad. That's going to cost me money. I might not be able to meal prep. So then I'll end up spending more by buying food outside. If I don't, like, so many factors are involved, and it can cost you money, time, and impact your ability to enjoy the job. So if you can avoid commuting, avoid it. Don't do it. I'm telling you, don't do it. The other part of the question, yes, so before I move on, so back to the money portion. So yes, like I said, that's $5,440 for 160 hours for somebody who's earning $33, $34, who's doing a typical 9-to-5. I don't do a typical 9-to-5. I did over $5,700 in 1 month, and the amount of hours that I did that month was 110 hours. That was my flight time of 10 hours, 110. I didn't do 160, but I earned more than somebody who did 160 hours at the same pay. So keep that in mind as well. So the pay is pretty good, at least with the airline company that I work for. And you would notice that a lot of people are switching or trying to move over to it because of that. But like I said, our pay includes so many more things. So the hourly pay might be good, but there might be certain conditions that you might not like that might potentially not make that hourly pay worth it. So just visit. I'm going to get the link to that site soon, and I'll probably put it in the description box somewhere so you can all see it. If you've also watched the video where I talked about the flight attendant pay, I had that link in the screen as well. So check it out. It would give you the side-by-side breakdown of the pay structure of the airline companies in the United States as well. Those that have unions, those who have contracts, all that good stuff. The other thing also, moving on to the second part of the question, is, are crash pads safe and the way to go or not? So far, I've had mixed information or mixed feelings when it comes to crash pads. Some say they're good, some say they're not. Ultimately, it's like boarding school. It's to a large extent dependent on who you're staying with. So if you're sharing, because if the house has, let's say, 4 bedrooms, right? They might have 3 rooms dedicated to women, one room dedicated to men, or half and half. The whole point is that they're usually like bunk beds in those rooms. So if the occupancy for that room is probably one person on a normal day, because the crash pad, the occupancy might end up being 8 or 10 or 12. So it's so many of you in a small room sleeping on bunk beds. The good thing is that the people that stay in crash pads don't live there continuously because they're always working. Typically, they're always working. So they only have the crash pad just to be able to have a place to sleep. If, for example, their trip ends and they're not able to go home or able to get on their commuter flight. Some people also decide to work for 2 weeks fully, staying in the crash pad, and then move their trips around to be able to have the remainder half of the month off as well. So are crash pads good or bad? Honestly, you won't necessarily know until you try it, because there are certain crash pads that are not good at all, that I've seen videos that are not good at all. And there are some that are good. So far, the people that I know that are Seattle based, that are in crash pads in Seattle, have had good experiences with their crash pads. So maybe it's a Seattle thing, but the way Seattle is set up in terms of cleanliness and bugs and cockroaches and rats and all that nonsense, the state as a whole rarely has that issue. It's not like somewhere in New York where they're like cockroaches flying everywhere or rats running everywhere and all that. We don't necessarily have that issue. Like where I live, I haven't seen a cockroach in my room ever, not even an ant. So but then it might be because of where I live, because I'm usually on the 3rd floor, 4th floor, like upper floor. So we don't have issues with those things. So as long as you keep your environment clean, everything is good. But the whole point I'm making is that people usually complain about crash pad because it's usually not properly kept, it's dirty. But then, like I said, the place doesn't get dirty by itself. Think about it. It's the people that live there. So if you're living with roommates who are not clean, who don't keep their environments clean, then it becomes a problem. Then it becomes uncomfortable because you weren't brought up like that, but probably they don't care. So then that becomes an issue. And then for me also, one of the huge factors for me when it comes to crash pad is safety. Because remember, it's a house, and a house with several rooms. So men and women are all together in that house, living together, just in separate rooms. So you don't know who is going to be there with you. And you don't know how extensive the background check on those people are. Obviously, we expect the airline companies to have done extensive background checks. But you and I know that regardless of how good the background check was, if the person got cleared or not, sometimes people be doing some weird stuff. So you never know. So with regards to safety and that, you won't know until you do it. But so far, I can say that it's been working out for people. I know personally friends that are in crash pads right now in Seattle, and they're enjoying it. They're not enjoying it because nobody wants to be away from home, but it's convenient and comfortable enough for them to be able to continue to stay there. The other thing is that you don't also have privacy because you're sharing the small room with other people. So usually people in crash pads will just work just to be able to, get to the point where they're able to get an apartment where they live, among other things. So keep that in mind as well. So yeah, that's it. Whether you're safe or not, honestly, it would be highly dependent on where you live or where you get it, because Seattle's crash pads might be fine, but then it doesn't mean that New York's crash pads are good. But so far, it's been safe. I haven't heard too many horror stories or bad situations where people are getting hurt or injured or impacted in a negative way. Worst case scenario, what I've heard is maybe your landlord not being the best or misleading you, providing you with misleading information, telling you one thing, you get to the crash pad, it's another. But personally, the people in my class from flight attendant training, all the crash pads that they got were great, and it was able to keep them going until they were able to transition to getting apartments as well. So yeah, keep that in mind. That's definitely an option. All right. So Louis Babe says, loving the live stream. Thank you so much. Sharia says, how is the flight attendant life has been okay. Like, honestly, I enjoy the flexibility of the job. I really do. And maybe it's because of the work that I've done in the past. I've done 9 to 5s. I've worked in a fulfillment. I worked with Amazon as a manager, where I was actually like I need to probably whole story time on that, but I was a manager. I was in the robotics facility, so I had like machines and everything in my department. I managed a team there, but at the end of the day, one thing that I love about this job is that it doesn't follow me home. So yeah, I had to go off camera a bit. My camera, I literally bought a brand new camera, and for whatever reason, it's been overheating because it did get pretty hot in Seattle. So I think because of the weather and everything, it's been messing up. So now I'm trying to be patient and figure out how best to work with it. So from time to time, I'm gonna go off and then come back on as well. Thank you so much for letting me know, though. I appreciate you, Trendy. So yeah, so I'm giving the camera a break. I'm trying to make sure that it doesn't overheat on me and everything. I think it was the weather in the past, but like what I was saying, flight attendant life has been great. And like I was saying, the biggest thing for me, aside all the other benefits that I get, is the fact that the work doesn't follow me home. When I was a manager at Amazon, my paperwork would follow me home. Like I would literally be writing paperwork reports for safety incidences or injuries that may have happened while I was on duty to my associates, and I'm doing it at home. Like literally 10 p.m., 9 p.m. I work from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., 8 p.m. and then I get home and I still have to work on the paperwork because I still have more to do. And when I start the next day, it just continues. So my work followed me home. There wasn't a good work-life balance. And I feel this job gives me that. Once I get off not even get off the plane, once everybody deplanes and I hit that jetway, that jet bridge, all bets are off. I'm off duty. It is gone. The show is over, okay? So I like that separation. I love, love, love that separation because that way, when I'm at home, I can detach from the work. When I go to work, then I can be all involved. And I love that separation, physical and mental separation between my work and my personal life as well. Veggie says, what has been your favorite trip so far? Ooh, favorite trip. Favorite trip. Do I have a favorite trip? I would say honestly, my favorite trip was my favorite trip, not necessarily because of the destination that I went to, but because of the people that I worked with. And with regards to that, I do have a story time. I'm going to talk about it here, but I would definitely do another video where I talk about it in detail. So, my favorite trip was when I did a rotation. It was a 3-day rotation, domestic rotation, and I worked with the crew that were so amazing. We gelled so well. If you've seen one of my videos where on my thumbnail it was 4 of us. It was myself and the crew members, and I took a photo of us and I used that as my thumbnail. We went to Spokane as part of the rotation. Spokane is in Washington State. It's like literally another major city in Seattle, in Washington State. And we went to Orlando afterwards as well. So it was a 3-day rotation, domestic rotation. But that trip was so great because I finally met people at work that were so nice, so cordial, super friendly, and we gelled so well together. It was as though we had known each other. And it was interesting because 2 of them were both from Hawaii, and they were neighbors. Their family homes were literally right next to each other, so they bonded and connected off of that. And then one of them, I lived near where I lived in Washington State home. So we just have so much in common, and it was amazing. I will forever remember that trip. We just gelled so well together. So that was my favorite trip so far. In terms of destinations though, I loved New York. I went to New York recently. I loved New York. I love the vibe of New York. Although I love New York, I don't want to live there. But every single time I go there, I'm mesmerized. I love the city feel. We were in Manhattan, and I just love it. It's just so beautiful, and it's there's so much going on. There's so much chaos, but it's beautiful at the same time. So I did like New York. I would say the Spokane trip was my favorite because of the crew that I work with, and New York obviously always has my heart, so I love it. With regards to international, I forgot Hawaii. Oh my God. So many already. I loved Hawaii too. Hawaii was beautiful. It was very calm and peaceful. Hawaii was literally like the opposite of New York, but I just love both for individual reasons and separate reasons. And I did do Amsterdam. The food there was great, but Amsterdam was, it was okay. I mean, I don't know, like it was okay. It was cool. I haven't done Paris yet, so I'm looking forward to doing Paris and London. And then maybe my options might change. But let's see. As a flight attendant, I mean, the world is literally at your fingertips, especially if you work with the airline company that I work for. So we go to so many destinations. But flight attendant life has been okay. Flight attendant life has been good. I like that separation that I get. So it's definitely been great. I will say there are moments when the job gets like really exhausting and stressful, but it's still manageable. It's not like what I had experienced when I worked at Amazon. Like when I worked at Amazon as a manager, I was literally like on my feet for like 12, 13 hours straight, walking back and forth. Like I would do like 20,000 steps in a day just from being at work. So barely had time to eat because of the back and forth and dealing with my associates and all that. So this one, although it can be tiring sometimes, there's more structure to it in the sense that you can make things work for you. So, and you have more control. I can move my schedule around. I can manipulate my schedule to be the way that I want. If I don't want to work, I can ask other people to pick up my trips. I can post it for pickup. I can swap with the system. So there's so many options for you. So I like that flexibility for sure. You said maybe try Canon M50. I hear a lot of good things. I would definitely look into it because I literally just bought this camera. I'm still trying to look to. I don't want to return it because I like it for vlogging. I took a video when I went to Hawaii, Lihue specifically, and the shot was so beautiful. Like the scenery looks so good on the camera. That's why I'm still holding on to it. But today it's been pretty good. I personally just turned it off because I'm trying to regulate the heat and not have it go crazy on me. So I'm still trying to figure it out. I think the more I learn it, the more I figure out how it would work for me. But I'll definitely look into the Canon M50. I had a Canon. I do have a Canon, but the quality was not the best. That's why I got this Nikon. And this Nikon is so temperamental. So I'm still working on it. Benji says a good crew makes all the difference. It does. And that leads me to the story time that I was talking about. So y'all, I do have something to share. Like your girl went big. Like I said, go big or go home. I just did Amsterdam again. I did Amsterdam last month in July during my reserve days. I was called for Amsterdam. And this month in August, I picked up an Amsterdam as well. And guess what? My second time of working international trip ever since I became a flight attendant, your girl was like, you know what? I'm feeling good today. Let me work galley. If you're a flight attendant, you know what working galley means. Literally, you're in charge of the food, the meals, the snack, the setup, the whatever. And I did galley on my very second international trip. I must say, it was not easy. It was a lot, but I'm glad I did it. And that ties me to the point that you made, Veggie. I was able to learn and be able to be successful or be able to figure things out because of the crew that I worked with. They were super, super helpful. So like the crew you work with can make or break your experience during a trip. But what I will say also is that to a large extent, become a bit passive to certain things. Like the whole ego struggle where like put your ego in your purse, like your carry-on, zip it, lock it, and put it in the bin. Just do that. Like, because I see people, even with flight attendants and customers versus customers, where like there's like this ego struggle where, well, you're wrong and I'm going to tell you you're wrong and that's what it's going to be. Sometimes you just have to be passive and just let certain things go. As long as somebody is not in danger, somebody's not dying, you are not in danger, and you're not dying, it's not a big deal, and you're not breaking any legalities or rules or anything. Like it's not a big deal. But I see a lot of back and forth with ego and power struggle and all that other stuff, and it's just way too much. And bear in mind that some crew members are awesome, some are great, and some are not. Everybody's attitude, personality, and temperament is different. So for me, when I go whenever I go into work, I don't go to work being defensive. I am not on defense mode. The only defense mode I'm on is security and safety wise. Beyond that, I'm just chilling. Okay? So when I go with that attitude, I just fill the room and just fill everybody to see where they are, and I meet them where they are. Because if you go in with negative energy, somebody might match your negative energy. If I meet somebody with negative energy, I just mind my business. I just mind my business. As long as you're not doing anything that puts me in danger and our passengers in danger, do you. Like, I'm just gonna mind my business. Don't take things personally, you know? Just flow. Just gel and just enjoy the job. Like I've always said, negativity is too exhausting. I can't. I'm all about the soft life. Negativity is hard life. I can't take it. I can't. Veggie once again says, London has a bit New York vibes, so I think you enjoy it very much. Okay, I look forward to it. I can't stand the small hotel rooms though, or the small little itty bitty rooms, but if it had New York vibes, then I'm definitely looking forward to it. I want to go to London, and also traveling there, customs is too much. Security, they do way too much. You have to put like all your look weights must fit in a small, tiny little bag, and it's just too much going on. But I do definitely want to do London. The place that I actually look forward to is Paris. I do want to do Paris. I want to experience that, and I do also want to go to Asia as well, because we do Haneda, Incheon. And I think they might bring back Beijing. I don't know. But I do look forward to doing Asia as well. But yes, I worked galley on my second international flight. And I was new. I've never done it before. And it was an experience. But like Veggie said, the crew you work with makes a whole lot of difference. Like it's critical. It is critical. I do also on this live want to shout out the Seattle-based crew that I work with. Also, like ever since I've been at this base, I've heard stories from other new flight attendants sharing the negative experiences that they've had, among other things. But for me personally, I have been fortunate to be able to have worked with crew members that I've not had like any like negative experience where I can say, oh no, this is that. Like I haven't had that. So far, everybody has been great. Obviously, there have been moments where I have, had certain encounters that were a little sketchy and interesting to say the least. But personally, for me, I work well with anybody. I don't care who you are, where we are, what we're doing. We're here for one thing and one thing alone, is to work this flight, make our money, and just move on with our lives. So regardless of what you have going on, I don't have to, I'm just doing me at the end of the day. But I do want to shout out the Seattle base, for example, for now, saying that like they've been great. Like they've been super welcoming to new flight attendants for sure that I'm aware of. And it's been a great experience. It's definitely also made it easy for me to transition into the job as well. So when you're picking your base, do some research to find out how things are, how people are there, and how people are treated over there as well. And just pay attention to those things, because it can make or break your experience. And because like when I did my Amsterdam, for example, the flight was almost 10 hours. So you're stuck with this person on a plane for 10 hours, literally in a tube for 10 hours. The same goes to passengers too. That's why sometimes I don't understand why flight attendants are willing to argue and fight with passengers. Because think about it, you're stuck in this plane for 10 hours with this person. And all that anger and that frustration bottled up for 10 hours, that's too much, That's too much. So try and be as easygoing as possible. And as I've always said, be ready to learn and be open to criticism, and just put your ego, like I said, put your ego in your bag, your carry-on, lock the bag and put it in the bin, because somebody might end up correcting you in front of a customer. Fine, you might feel bad based on how you're corrected, but at the end of the day, are you going to let that situation impact your entire experience? So weigh your options. Is it worth it or is it not? So keep that in mind. All right, so moving on to how to become a flight attendant. What are the things you should consider if you're planning on becoming a flight attendant? The other thing is seniority, right? Seniority is very important. Seniority can make or break your experience as well. If you're a new flight attendant, as I've always said, you basic to an extent, you don't have a lot of control over your schedule. The only control you have is after the schedule has been released and you're able to swap or move things around. But certain bases are senior, some are not. New York, with the airline company that I work for example, New York base is pretty junior because there's so many junior flight attendants there. The reason what makes that good is that because there's so many junior flight attendants, chances of you getting trips that are worthwhile is high compared to my base where there's so many senior people. So for me personally, even if chances of me getting assigned Amsterdam, Paris, or London right out of the gate when schedules are released is very, very low because my base is super senior. There's super senior people that can hold those trips, and once they take it all up, there's something for me. But at the end of the day, as I've always said, in this job, you can make anything happen for you. So there are no limitations or restrictions in the sense. But seniority is important, and that's why a lot of people also ended up choosing bases like New York and Boston, because certain people who have been with the airline company that I'm working for less than a year in or barely a year in Boston, for example, I heard are off A-days, reserve days. They're not getting assigned reserve anymore. So somebody who's literally been in the company for like a year and a half or 2 years or whatever, and based in Boston, is not getting assigned reserve days. Whereas somebody at the same tenure and similar seniority level in Seattle is getting assigned 8 reserve days or A-days. So that's where seniority comes in play. So if you're trying to become a flight attendant and you go through the application process, obviously sometimes you don't have the option to choose the base you want to be assigned. But what I know is that if New York is available, Seattle is available, Boston is available, and you're hoping to grow senior wise in terms of seniority level, like get that boost that you need, you might potentially consider Boston even though you live in Seattle, because in Boston people with very minimal seniority level are not getting reserve days. So it means chances of you getting to that point is greater compared to being based in Seattle. However, once again, back to my initial point, you have to look at where you're based, where you live, and commuting, because is it worth it not getting reserve days and having to commute and go on 4 or 5 hour flights every day, 10-hour flight in and out, or being based in Seattle, still getting reserved, but you're at home and your expenses are much better that way. So definitely keep that in mind. Also, the other thing to consider is once you do your research and everything, putting together your resume. Putting together your resume is also very important, because I know it's hard for people, and honestly, I'm not a resume expert, so I can't tell you what will work and what won't work. But one thing I will say is that when you're putting together your resume, you have to sell yourself. That's what that is about. You have to sell yourself. You have to sell yourself. So after you do all your research, you figure out what airline companies are hiring, which ones you do want to apply to work with, and what type of flight attendant you want to be. You figure out what routes they fly, because that would impact your choice, among other things, your seniority. Oh, before I move to the resume, let me talk about reserve schedule. Yes, I skipped that. Oh, sorry. Let me talk about the reserve schedule before I move to the resume, and then we'll talk about the application process as well. So reserve schedule. Like I said in my most recent video where I talk about what it meant to be on reserve, some airline companies actually put you on reserve right out of training. It's the same with the airline company that I work for. The only difference is that we get reserved 6 days in a month. Whereas with those other airline companies, you're on reserve the entire month. You do get days off, but you're on reserve the entire month, sometimes several months, sometimes several years. In the past, with my airline company, there were people that were on reserve for 12 years before they became line holders. So they were on reserve straight for 12 years. Reserve means you're on call. You are at the mercy of a company. Obviously, there are some legalities and restrictions that are regulated. So it's not like you're on call every single time you're anxious and scared or whatever. But think about it from a commuter perspective. If you commute to New York and you're based in Seattle and your reserve starts Monday in 12 midnight, it means by Monday 12 midnight you should be at New York. And how can you get to New York from Seattle? Remember, the flight is about 6 hours. And how can you ensure that you get on the flight that's going to take you there in time to be available? You know, there's so much involved. That's why I always say, if you can get out of commuting, don't do it. If you can get out of it, don't do it. It's not worth it. So reserve schedule is very important. My airline, you're only on reserve, 6 days in a month? So you are a line holder who gets reserved 6 days in the month. So when you're doing your research, you need to consider, do you want to apply to an airline company that's potentially going to put you on reserve for a month, for 2, for 3, for 4, for 6 months? Or you want to work with an airline company where you're a line holder, you're getting assigned trips, plus you get reserved six days in a month. When you're on reserve, although you haven't been assigned any trip during that period, the times allotted for the reserve, you can't pick up any trip. So it restricts you and it impacts your pay as well. Fine, you can potentially pick up trips on your days off, but that's working on your days off. Like for me being a line holder, I do get my reserve 6 days in a month. That's sitting there minding its own business. So my reserve literally makes up 1 week, right? Out of the 4 weeks in a month. I have 4 weeks to work trips in between my days off and stuff like that. So that's why in August, I had my reserve for 1 week. And then for the remaining 3 weeks, I worked 4 days. I had 3 days off. So I'm not doing too much. I'm just having the ability to be able to work my schedule the way I want it. And those are some of the benefits of working, like being a line holder. And that's why people like it, because you also have more structure. You know what trips you're working, what the report time is, what the release time is. So to a large extent, you can actually make plans. If you're on reserve and it's, let's say, 6 days straight, and you have a day, like, you don't know where you're going to be sent. So even if you have friends in Seattle, maybe you have friends in New York, you have friends in Texas that you want to visit, and you're hoping that some of your rotations will take you there, or you want to pick up trips that will take you there. Being on reserve doesn't offer you that. You don't know where you're going to be sent. You might be sent to Greece while you're on call, which is amazing and all, but assuming you had already been assigned that trip, then you can actually make plans and actually do research as to things you want to do and stuff like that. So that's some of the advantages of being a line holder compared to being on reserve. So you definitely want to do your research to see if the airline company you're applying to, once out of training, is going to put you on reserve for how long. Are you going to be on reserve for a week? Are you going to be, not for a week, for a month, for 2 months, for 3 months, for 6 months? How consistent are they with making you a line holder? When you become a line holder, is that a forever thing, or are you going to toggle back onto going onto reserve? So definitely do your research. That's something that I did not really fully understand when I was applying. All I knew was that the airline company that I was applying to gives us 6 days in a month, and that was the lesser evil for me. I would rather want to have 6 days every month than to be on it for the entire month for a year. So that was a comparison, or the skill that I had that made me make my choice. Okay, so keep that in mind. So moving on, Q&A. If you have any questions, don't forget to drop in the comment section below. If you have any concerns, let me know. Once again, like I said, I do want to create exclusive members videos. So do become a member of my channel, and that way we can have like exclusive chat and stuff like that, where we get into the real, you know, the tea that can't be spilled just anywhere. Plus, you can actually ask me direct questions and any assistance that you need. If I have to do more research to get you that information, I would do so as well. So keep that in mind. Also, don't forget to like the video. Don't be stalking us here, okay? Like the video. Please like the video. Thumbs up the video. Give too much drama right now. But yes, moving on. How to become a flight attendant. So you do your research, you decide, you figure out what works best for you, you finally decide to apply. Back to the resume point. Like I said, I'm not a resume expert, so I'm not here to tell you what's good, what's bad. You can definitely do your research to figure out what you need to do to make your resume give it that hump that it needs to sell you. But like I was saying, your resume needs to sell you. And at the end of the day, you should know that the flight attendant job is customer service based. Customer interaction is required. So whatever duties or responsibilities or work history that you have that you input in that resume should sell that. So regardless of what you were doing, you might be distributing newspaper. If you came in contact with individuals, if you came in contact with clients, how was that customer interaction? That's what you should put out there. I have a comment here, Joseph Beth. I think I got your name correct. If it's wrong, please let me know. Hey girl, any advice for a mom of 2 kids that wants to switch careers and become a flight attendant at the age of 30? One thing I will start off, since you brought up age, is that there's no age cap of becoming a flight attendant, at least with the airline company that I work for. As long as you can do your safety duties and go through the whole safety process and amongst other things and provide service and interact and stand on your feet, lift, among other things, there's no age cap. So you can literally be 60 years and apply. You can be 65 and apply. You can be 70 and apply. There's no age cap. It's the pilots that do have an age restriction because at a certain age they have to retire. But flight attendants don't. For moms, honestly, from what I have heard with the conversations that I've had with parents, being a flight attendant has offered moms the flexibility that they need, because we do have red-eye trips where you work at night, overnight, into the morning. So you literally go to work, you report, let's say, we have several report times. Some are 7, some are after 7, some are 6 p.m., some are 8, some are 9, I think. And you work overnight, correct? So if you're doing only red-eye turns, red-eye turn is that you report at 8:40, your report time is at 8:40 p.m. You work a trip overnight into the morning and you're released in the morning, maybe between 8, 6, 7, or 5 a.m. The good thing with that is that as you're going to work, your kids are getting ready to go to bed. As you return from work, they're probably about to wake up or awake, getting ready to go to school or whatever the case may be. Even if you're with your husband or your partner, you can then take over from them. So they go to work and then you are home to take care of the home and the kids and stuff like that. So it's actually been beneficial. I know parents that work red eyes a lot because it helps them. And if they do the red eyes during the business days, then their partner goes to work during the business days. Then they get to spend time with their kids during the weekends. Obviously, when you're applying to become a flight attendant, switching is the hard part. Once you switch over, you go through training and you're on the line. That, to me personally, is like the easiest part, because training means you're away from your kids for 6 weeks. With the airline company that I work for, is 6 weeks. I heard through the grapevines that it might potentially be 7. I don't know how true that is, but I'm hearing rumors about that. But that's the hard part. Going through the application process, finally getting the training date assigned, and leaving your household for 6 straight weeks, especially if you don't live in the same state where the training happens. Our training happens in Atlanta. So when you're away from home for that amount of time from your kids and you don't get a good amount of days off that can allow you to potentially fly back home, you can do it, but it's risky because honestly your benefits are available to you. Your travel benefits are literally available to you immediately you get your training date assigned. So if your training date get assigned today, August 23rd, your travel benefits are taking effect August 23rd. So during training, you can travel back home and stuff like that. However, it's the convenience of it and the impact it might have on you in the long run whilst you're in training, the distraction it may offer. So if you live in Arizona, for example, as you said, and you apply with the airline company that I applied to, you will have to go to Atlanta for training, and that's 6 weeks or potentially 7. And during that time, you're a mom of 2. You're going to be away from your kids. So you're going to have to get family, friends, your partner, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever it is, to take care of your kids, or somebody to care for your kids during that period of time. And that might be hard for you, for your kids and for you, not necessarily because of you getting help, but the fact that you're away from them for so long. So that makes it difficult. So for me, the transition part is difficult, but once you get on the job, you might not get the schedules that you want. However, you can move things around. Like for me, this month, I got assigned 6 days of reserve and 3 trips. One of my trip was a red-eye turn, a red-eye one day. So I go in at night at 8:40 p.m. and I return the following morning. And the other one was a 3-day trip. The other 2 were 3-day trips. So I'm not getting assigned so many trips from the get-go. So if I'm able to negotiate with people, balance, trade, swap, I can make the schedule work for me. So whenever you feel you can get babysitter help, then you can swap into trips for those days. That way you are able to... Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry about that. I completely forgot. Oh my. Thank you for letting me know. Oh my. I hope it's better now. Thank you so much, Alicia, for saying it. Oh, thank you. I didn't even pay attention to that. Oh my God. Thank you so much for letting me know. Oh my. Forgive me, guys. The noise was the music background noise was too loud. Sorry about that. Thank you for letting me know. So yes, so if you know you're going to have family support on these days, then you can potentially swap your trips into that period of time so that you can work during the time that you know you're going to have family support. The good thing about this job compared to typical 9-to-5 jobs is that with this job, you can move things around. Your schedule is released to you on the 16th of the month prior. So my schedule for September has been released on August 16th, depending on which base you're in. New York, Atlanta, for example, gets their schedule released on the 19th. So Seattle is the 16th. So depending on where your base is, between the 16th to the 19th. So that's why I always give that range, because depending on where your base is, it will not be the 16th of the month prior. So once that happens, you know you have at least 14 days to figure out how you want to move things around before the month starts. So that's the benefit of this job. And also the other thing also with regards to parents is that because of the flexibility of it and the fact that you're not assigned so many trips right when schedules are released, whenever you can get support, you can swap into trips during that period so that it works for you. The downside of that is that there isn't consistency in terms of your schedule. Your schedule is not fixed, but it's beneficial to you as a parent because things can change for you at any point in time, because you have kids and anything can happen. So it helps you because you know that you're not strict, the schedule is not strict, and you're not stuck with one schedule the entire month. But I will say that switching is the hard part, going for training. But once you get on the line, especially if you're assigned a base where you live, that's perfect. That works out. And you said, I live in Arizona, so basically the only mainline base here is American Airlines and Southwest. So I would say, because those are the main lines that have bases where you live, you being a parent, I would not advise you commute. I would not advise that you commute, because when you're commuting, it takes time away from you. So let's say I have a friend, for example, who commutes, and because of that, she does only 3-day trips every week. So she does 1 3-day trip every week and has 4 days off. However, she technically only has 2 days off, because out of the 4 days off, she's using 1 to commute to work at the front end and using the 1 day to commute back home on the back end. So no, at the front end, commute back home, and then at the back end, commute back to work. So although they're working a 3-day trip once every week and have 4 days off, their actual days off is just 2 days. So if you're working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and you have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, although it's 4 days, Thursday you're commuting back home. Sunday you're commuting to work. So your actual days off is the 2 days in between. So you being a parent, I would suggest that if American and Southwest do have a base where you live, consider them first. Even though the base in Arizona might not be available to you at the time that you're applying for the job, at least you know you have the potential to transfer over once you get into the company. However, if pay is a factor for you, or certain factors are important to you and these airline companies do not have it, you might potentially consider applying to the airline that has these factors like pay and other stuff that matter to you. However, you have to weigh your options. Do you want to work with an airline company that's based where you are, where your quality of life will be better, you will be close to home? Because for you, if you're commuting, it means out of the week, even if you're working only 1 3-day trip every week, right? Out of the 4 days, of that week that you're supposed to have off, you're technically only spending 2 days with your kids and your family. So that doesn't help you as a mom who's commuting, because you're spending more time at work than you are at home. I mean, a typical 9 to 5, that math will make sense, because if you're working a typical 9 to 5, you're working 5 days in a week and you have 2 days off. However, because you're only doing 3 days, like your hours and your pay will not match, so it would make the quality of the job be more lessened compared to if you had time to spend with your family. So then it's worth it. So then you can weigh it out. Although you're not working so many hours, you're at least getting time to spend with your family. So it makes it worth it. But in terms of commuting, I think I saw another question about commuting for you. Let me see. You have family support. That's great. Honestly, that you would need it when you're going through this transition, because becoming a flight attendant requires a lot. But once you get on the job, it's not as complicated anymore. It's not as difficult. It's more chill. It's more easy. Sharia said, that's crazy. I'm in New York area. I hope I get New York base when I apply to this airline. New York is typically open for the most part, and I heard the airline will be hiring 4,000 more people next year. And usually New York is open. Like if any base will be open, it would definitely be New York for sure, because it has, when I was applying, they had like 4,000 people, and Seattle had just 1,200. So New York, Atlanta is the biggest. Atlanta has like over 8,000 people, but flight attendants. But New York is also growing, and it's super junior. So I suspect New York will open up again. But at the end of the day, you do have the ability to request for base transfers once you get on the line. And also, when something is happening to you, you also have to report it and put feedback, and not report it as in report to get someone in trouble. But let's say you're a new flight attendant, you got to assign Boston, and you're finding it hard to get an apartment, you're struggling to get a crash pad. You have to let your managers know, and you have to give feedback, because we do have like associations within the company that are there to help you out. So if they're finding out that, hey, our new hires are finding it difficult to transition into the job, why would a company who has invested 6 weeks in you for training just not do anything to help you? Obviously, they're not going to go rent an apartment for you. That's not what I'm saying. But it might potentially influence their threshold or their timeline for allowing people to do base transfers. And I think that's what happened recently, at least with the airline that I work for. They got a lot of reports of new hires struggling to transition to the bases where they've been assigned, or the bases that were available to them when they applied. And because of that, it allowed the company to say, hey, we typically do a base transfer this period of time, but this time around we're going to do it earlier. So we're going to do a mass base transfer. They opened it up and people requested for transfers, and people got moved around. So if something is wrong, if you're finding it hard to transition, talk to somebody, talk to your mentors, talk to your managers, and see what the best options are for you. The other benefit and the other thing that I think that the company did was that because of issues like this, they actually allowed us to go through a base selection before training. That way you have 6 weeks or the training period to figure out what your living situation would be and whatever support you would need as well. So they are making moves to make the process more convenient, more easier. So nothing is impossible. Definitely nothing is impossible. So yeah, I heard they're hiring 4K next year. So hopefully New York is open. If not, wherever you get assigned, you can definitely, request for a transfer. The other thing also is that Boston is close to New York, so you might potentially consider Boston. But one thing also to consider is an airport might be close to you, or a base might be close to you. However, it might not necessarily be close to you. If Boston is close to you and you can't get flights from New York to Boston, but you can get flights to Detroit more frequently or easily than getting flights from New York to Boston, then you might potentially want to consider getting a Detroit base. Yeah, so consider that. Josabeth said, can you talk about commuting when living in a different state? So essentially, when it comes, what makes commuting difficult? One is the fact that you have to fly to work, and knowing the level of uncertainty that is associated with flying, that can be a potential risk, right? Because if the weather goes bad, for example, and you can't fly to your base, you're stuck at home. That it means you didn't show up for work. That would go against you. Also, even if you're able to make it there, because of the uncertainty, commuters are likely to fly in earlier than the scheduled time for work. So unlike me, who lives at base, if my report time is at 7 o'clock a.m., I might leave home at 5 a.m. and drive to work. I have 2 hours to get to work because I know that time frame is feasible for where I live and where I have to drive to. However, if you're flying, you can't just say that because your airport where you live is a 2-hour flight to the base where you work at. So you're literally your report time is at 7 a.m. So you're literally going to get on a flight that's 4 a.m. You can't do that because you have to factor in delays, you have to factor in cancellations. So typically people who are commuting, for example, because we have the ability to book on other airlines as well. So we have airlines that we've partnered with that allows us to book flights on those as well, using our flight benefits. So what most people would do is like they would book one flight, let's say with their airline they work for, which is the airline that I work for. Then I'll probably book another one with United as my backup. So my flight is at 7 a.m. My report time is 7 a.m. I personally will choose the earliest flight that day. So let me give another time. Let's say your flight is at 12 noon today. I would choose a 7 a.m. flight, a 6 a.m. flight, just so it gives me time. If I'm not able to make it for the 7 a.m. flight and there's a 9 a.m. flight, I can make it for that, just to give myself time, or go to base the day before. So what makes it difficult, the second point that I'm coming to, is that if I want to go to the base the day before the start of my flight, my shift, it means I have to stay at a hotel or I have to stay at a crash pad. That will cost you money. When you're renting crash pads, it's not costing you rent money as in like $1,000, $2,000 or whatever, but you're paying monthly rent for the space you're renting for the crash pad. Depending on how many days you're staying there, how much you pay will vary. You're paying rent for that. In terms of meals, you being able to get a good crash pad, you making sure that it's safe. Like there's so much going on, and if you're on reserve and you don't have a crash pad or whatever, or even if you do have to fly to work. So if you're on reserve for the 6 days and you go to your base and you don't get used, that's waste of money. You literally flew all the way to your base, which was Seattle. You stayed in a hotel or you stayed in a crash pad, which you're paying for, but you did not get used. You weren't assigned any trip. Fine, you're getting paid for being on reserve, but that pay is very minimal because it's just a guaranteed pay for that period. And literally all the money you got from being on reserve is spent on that crash pad or that hotel. So you literally made no money during that period that you went to your base. So that's what makes commuting quite difficult, especially when you're in reserve. But yes, if you can commute from state to state. There are people that commute from Houston, Texas to Seattle. There are people that commute from Seattle to New York. There are people that commute from New York to Seattle, from Salt Lake City to Seattle. There are literally people that commute from LA. We have a base in LA, but there are people that live in LA that would commute, or live in San Diego that would commute from San Diego to Seattle rather than be based in LA and drive to LA, because the traffic in LA is so bad that it makes the flight from San Diego to Seattle quicker and shorter. So commuting is difficult. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to but make it pretty and cute. No, like the reality is that commuting is difficult and it takes a lot of your time and money. So if you can avoid commuting, avoid it. Don't do it. Please don't do it. I am telling you, if you can avoid commuting, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it at all. If you can avoid commuting, don't do it. Do not do it, because a lot is involved, and you being a new flight attendant, your pay's not that good. You're not getting the trips that you want. You're still trying to adjust to flying, because my first month was hard, like adjusting to so much, because you will be flying so much in a day than you probably would have flown in a month if you were not a flight attendant. So within a day, sometimes you're doing 6, 7 flights, whereas in your past life, you wouldn't even have flown 6, 7 times in a month, even a quarter of the year. So it's very different, and it takes a toll on your body. And to add on commuting and flying back and forth, that's additional flying on top of the excess flying you're already doing as a flight attendant. So people will say commuting in itself is a job. You're just not getting paid for it. You do have your flight benefits. You can book your jump seat, you can book standby, all that good stuff, but it takes a toll on you. It's a lot of stress. The other thing also is during summer, winter storms and all that, when cancellations, delays are brutal and happening left, right, center, you won't be able to commute to work. And if you're not able to commute to work, obviously there are commuter policies that are in your contract as a flight attendant, but you do have to do the research, read into it to see what coverage, what support, and what coverage you have. Because if your commuter report requires you to have booked certain flights at certain time intervals, blah, 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 and you didn't do it, then you might not get that coverage or that support that you need, or that sense of pay protection that you were supposed to get, or whatever excuse you would need since you weren't able to make it to work. And although the airline company does not require you to live at base, if you're not able to make it to work because you couldn't get on a flight, it's not that simple for you to say, well, I wasn't able to get on the flight, so I didn't make it to work. It's not that simple. It doesn't work that way. There are certain policies and conditions that needs to be met for you to get that protection or that excuse. So keep that in mind. So if you can avoid commuting, avoid it. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm telling you. That's great to hear. LaGuardia or JFK would be perfect. Yes, when you're based in New York with the airline company that I work for, you work out of 2 airports, LaGuardia and JFK. So if you're on reserve or on call, you can be assigned a trip that it flies out of LaGuardia or out of JFK. So when you're based in New York, you're working out of 2 airports. I think in the past it used to be 3. It was Newark, LaGuardia, and JFK, but they dropped Newark. So now, once you're based in New York, you will be flying out of LaGuardia or JFK, and JFK, both of them. Also, I think reserve is really hard. It's not, at least when you become a flight attendant, for the first part, when you start, it comes with a level of anxiety because there's so many things. Like when you're done with work, you're supposed to request for a release. Like it's not as peaceful and smooth as working your assigned trips. Like when I had my Amsterdam trip recently, I reported to work. I showed up. I did my time. The plane landed at Seattle. I was done. I went home. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to call anybody. But when you're on call, whenever you're done with work, you literally have to report that you're done with work to get released. Like, it's just so much involved. That's why I like the airline that I work for, because we only get 6 days in the month. So once you do the 6 days, you're done for the month. The rest of the month is yours. So unlike another airline where you would be on reserve for the entire month, so out of the 30 days, you might be assigned reserve, standby, airport sit, reserve, whatever it is, however they structure it for, let's say 15 days or 16 or 17 or 18 days, and you might get 12 days off. So it depends on how that goes. But I don't like the anxiety that is associated with being on call, because you never know what you're going to get. And because you don't know what you're going to get, you do have guaranteed pay, which is about 70 something hours when you're on reserve for like the entire month and stuff like that. But it 70 hours is not enough, right? If it's not enough to cover your bills, then it's like you have to find trips to work on your off days just so you can add on to it, you know? Whereas with my airline, I'm only doing it 6 days out of the month. So I have 24 days to work and make money. If I want more days off, then I work less. If I want more money, then I work more. So that's it. That's the difference. But I wouldn't say it's hard. It's just there's so much anxiety associated with it. Like, are they gonna call me or are they not? Like, what am I gonna get? What trip am I gonna get? Is it gonna be worth it? Is it gonna be a good trip? Because you can get any trip. You can get a trip with like 4 legs in a day, 4 flights in a day. You might get a trip with it. It's just, you never know what you're going to get. And some people like that. Some people don't. But some people like it because some people have had their best trips from reserve. Like my first international Amsterdam was from me being on reserve. Yeah, so it's a it's good, but people in New York, for example, are able to go to Athens, Greece, are able to go to Switzerland, are able to go to what do you call it, Tel Aviv or Paris or London or wherever, because they're on reserve. So it depends on where you are and how you feel about it, but it's not really that bad. It's just that if you're commuting, for example, when you're on reserve, you want to be used. You want to be assigned a trip, because if you're not being used, it means you're either at a crash pad or at a hotel. So you're spending money, so you want to be used so that you don't have to spend so much money. Yeah. Shaira said, if New York, then, well, I would say consider Boston first, because ATL is a huge base. There are like 8,000 flight attendants in Atlanta. We have about 27,000 flight attendants in this company, in the company as a whole, and almost 10,000 of them are in Atlanta. What that means, and not all of them are flying. So what that means is that Atlanta is very senior, and it might be hard for you to get certain trips. Like it might be hard for you to get good trips, okay? It might be hard for you to get a good schedule per se. So I would say, if Boston is available and Boston is closer, I think Boston is closer to New York, consider Boston first before ATL. Because there are people that live in ATL, and even though Atlanta was available or open for transfer, they didn't request for it. They stayed in Detroit or somewhere else. So that's a reason. But I would say definitely consider Boston for sure. Because, yeah, Atlanta, there are a lot of senior people. There are some trips that you might never touch, simply because of how senior the base might be or how hard it might be to get those trips. But if you're on A days or reserve, you might get them. So you never know, right? But if you do, if you will be able to live in Atlanta and not have to commute from New York to Atlanta, then it's great. But also New York and Atlanta, there are always so many flights going in and out of New York to Atlanta. So it increases your chances when it comes to commuting. But then again, I've seen Atlanta experience so many unforeseen circumstances. Just recently on the trip that I did, that's a story time that I'm going to share soon, where I was supposed to go to Atlanta. They had a ground stop. The weather was bad. At the end of the day, I ended up sitting on the tarmac with passengers, over almost 200 passengers in a tube, in a plane, for 2.5 hours. Simply because there were 85 planes ahead of me that did not have gates at Atlanta. So I personally, as a flight attendant, I wouldn't want to be based in Atlanta, because I don't want to work out of that airport. It's just always something going on there. So, but if it's closer, if it's convenient, if it's gonna make you have a good work life, a good quality work life, then it's worth it. So everybody, to each their own. It might work for some people, it might not work for others, but just make sure you do your research and figure out what works for you and what doesn't, for sure. Evelina says, I have a face-to-face with another legacy. Any tips? I would say just be authentic. Honestly, if yours is the way mine was, the company set the tone. They came in very happy, very excited. There were so many people from the hiring team there, which means that you're being watched at every point in time. I know I spoke to somebody in my training class, and they stated that there were literally like cameras around. I didn't notice it, honestly, because the vibe was so positive, it was so energetic, but I didn't pay attention enough. But they were telling me that potentially the decision for who's getting hired and who is not was not necessarily made by the people in the room, not by them per se, but there were other people also that were watching your interactions and how you're interacting with other people, what you're doing at what point in time. So just be yourself, and at the end of the day, keep in mind that sometimes you might want something, but that thing might not be for you. Using myself as an example, at some, like, I would say 10 years ago, no, 12, yeah, about 12, 11 years ago, at some point in my life, let's put it that way, I could have become a flight attendant two times actually. One, when I was in college, I would have become a flight attendant. However, I didn't do it because I didn't feel comfortable leaving my family, my parents and my family and everybody back home to go to a different country. I think it was to Dubai because I wanted to apply to Emirates. I wanted to fly with Emirates. I didn't feel comfortable living in the Middle East by myself. So I didn't do it. Although I wanted to become a flight attendant then, it was a thought that crossed my mind. I did the research into the pay and everything and the conditions and the requirement. But it required me relocating to Dubai and I didn't want to do it. Then when I moved to the United States, while I was in Washington State, I met this lady that worked with Alaska Airlines. And she also spoke to me about it. I was this close to doing it. And I was like, you know what? No, it's not for me right now. Let me not do it. And fast forward 6 years later, I'm a flight attendant with an airline company that was not even an option, or I didn't even think about during all the times or the opportunities that I had to become a flight attendant. Another example is I was in class with people that had been trying to work with this airline company that I'm working for. They had applied 5 times for 5 years. Somebody had done it for 10 years. So they've been doing it every single year for 10 years. So just because you're going for your face-to-face now doesn't mean that whether you get it or not, it doesn't take anything away from you in the sense that it might just not be your time. And sometimes if they're looking to hire 10 people today and there are 50 of you, just because you don't make it part of the 10 doesn't necessarily mean that you weren't good enough. They hit the quota. So if the 10th person had something, it might be just a T or a dot that differentiated them from you, they might get picked and not you, but it doesn't mean that you weren't good enough. That's how people can apply several times and eventually they do get hired. So it's not because you're not good enough. If you trust in your capabilities and you believe in yourself and you know you did what you were supposed to do, you understood the assignment and you did what you were supposed to do, that's what matters. But I have seen people not picked and later on get picked. So it's not anything. It's, you just don't give up. Just keep trying, because if somebody did it for 5 years and somebody did it for 10 years, I didn't even apply during the times that I considered. But at the end of the day, if somebody did it, tried for 5 years, tried for 10 years, you should know. Like, somebody literally said the last time they applied, it was they got the opportunity to apply was because they changed the parameter. Initially, when you apply, I think you can apply, when you get rejected or you don't get offered the conditional job offer, you have to wait for a certain period of time. I think it was 6 months or so. And her friend told her, hey, they've changed it to 3 months now, so go ahead and apply. And she was like, if she doesn't get it, she's not going to try anymore. And she was already in the 5th year of applying, and she got it during that period. So you never know when your moment to shine is going to show. All I would say is be yourself, be honest in your responses, and be genuine, like in terms of the questions you're asking. Like for me, when I went there, honestly, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it. I was like, here, let's just go see what's going to happen. Let's go to the event day and see what would happen. But once I got through the door, how welcoming the company was, the whole process was just, it was so good. I was like, okay, this company seems really cool. Okay, we're getting this today, and this is what we're going to do. But at the end of the day, enjoy the experience, because I enjoyed the experience. Even if I did not get offered the job, I at least enjoyed the experience. So enjoy the experience, be authentic, pay attention to detail. That I would tell you. Pay attention to detail. There will be certain activities that you might do, and it would require you paying attention to detail and listening. So definitely do that, because it's important for the job. You have to pay attention to detail. You have to listen. If somebody tell you they have a peanut allergy and you don't pay attention, you don't listen, you don't follow through with what you need to do, you can literally have an allergic reaction on the plane simply because you served peanut and somebody told you they had a peanut allergy. So it's like, you have to pay attention to detail. You have to think on your feet. And for me, during my one-on-one, it was more so conversational, in the sense that I genuinely wanted to know more about the job. I wanted to know about the pay. I wanted to know about the schedule. I wanted to know about like the quality of life. I wanted to know about the basis. I mean, I knew the base that I was going to be assigned even before I went for training. This was the interview process. So yes, about the basis as well. Like how it is. I actually asked questions about commuting, because my mindset was, I don't know what bases are open by the time I get offered my CJO. So let me get as much information about commuting as possible right from the horse's mouth. And they were very open and honest. They would show you actual schedules, at least with the airline that I work for. Like, they would be open and honest in terms of your pay and your schedule, how it's going to be. You working on weekends as a new flight attendant. I don't mind working weekends. I love working weekends, but some people don't. But they would make it like you might not be able to go for a wedding. Like, I wasn't able to go for a wedding because of my new hire meeting that was scheduled and I didn't want to miss it. But they will let you know what the real deal is, commuting and everything, and how hard or easy it can, not even easy, because honestly I don't know how easy it can be, because with the way cancellations happened this summer, if people were struggling to get to work because they couldn't commute, even if they would get a seat, if the flight gets canceled, nobody's going anywhere. It's one thing not getting a seat on the flight, but if the flight itself is canceled, how are you going to get to work? So if you're driving and your car breaks down, you can take an Uber. If the flight gets canceled, you can get another flight, but think about the logistics involved. So definitely, if you can not commute, don't commute. If you do get a base that you don't live in and you can potentially get a crash pad, consider that. I know hotels also have day rooms, so look into that, where it's not as expensive as renting the room for a night, but it's a little bit cheaper and it's within a time frame that makes sense. I watched someone's video where they've been getting these day rooms for like $60, $50, $40, and it's maybe probably from 11 in the morning to like 6 at night or something. So there are options. Crash pads are not the only option. The other thing also is that you get the day rooms with the hotels, and some hotels have crash pad like setups, but the advantage is that somebody does the cleaning for you. The hotel does the cleaning for you, so you don't have to worry about cleaning. It's not very common, but you have to specifically go in and look for it. But I know hotels have that. They have like crash pad setup. It might be slightly more expensive than an average crash pad, but somebody's cleaning your room for you. And I think is like an adjoining room, like you share one bathroom. I think that's how, I don't know how it's connected in a way, but I've heard of something like that. So definitely do your research into that. So crash pads are not the only options. Day rooms and hotels, you get the rooms for cheaper prices. I think between 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Like there's a specific time frame, because think about it. Hotels check in at at 3 or 4 p.m. and check out at 11. So unless somebody already checked into the room the night before, the room is just there. It's just sitting there. So unless I checked into this room at 4 p.m. today, if this room is not used by 4 p.m. today and somebody does not get it during the night or whatever, it's open and it's just sitting there. So they will be more willing to give it to you for that period of time for a discounted price than to just have the room sit there and not be used. But I heard that's an option too. Hey, Renelle Livingstone. Hey everybody. Hello, Renelle. What did she say? Thank you for your honesty. This kind of makes me sad because I loved. Yeah, I know. It's one of those things, but you can also, it depends. Like, I know people that commute. Yeah, I know people that definitely commute. So that comes back to my research and just weighing your options, because one thing about the flight attendant industry also is that before you go into it, think carefully about it, because longevity pays off. So if you spend 10 years with an airline company working as a flight attendant and you switch to a different airline company, the seniority of 10 years that you have at that airline means nothing at the new airline. So you lose all the privileges that you would have had for somebody who's been with the airline for 10 years compared to somebody who's now moving on to a new airline. I know this lady that I spoke to during my event day, and she had been a flight attendant with another airline company for 26 years. And at the time, earlier on in her career, her friends were moving over to this airline that I work for, and she didn't do it. But eventually, during COVID or whatever, she left her airline and decided to join my airline. But her regret was not doing it sooner, because right now, even though she's a little older, that 26 years that she spent at that airline, she could have spent or maybe 23 out of the 26 at the airline that she's currently with my airline right now, which would have been more beneficial to her. So if you have, right now that information is out there, before everything was so coveted and hidden and secretive and whatever, this is not an occult, I don't know why, but now that information is out there, do a thorough research, because when you start this job, it becomes the goal. It will become a career for you. You might end up doing it long term. I've been doing it for 5 months, but it feels like I've only been doing it for a month. So time flies by very quickly. I literally got on the line in April. It's now September. So time flies by very quickly, and you wouldn't want to invest time in an airline company that you don't want to work for long term. So although I'm saying don't commute if you don't have to, or for quality of life, among other things, look at the bigger picture for you. Do you want to be like, what are you willing to stay with this airline long term, or you're willing to work with the airline company that you actually want and make moves to make it happen for you? That's you have to weigh it, because if you spend 10 years here and eventually you end up moving to Seattle, for example, where there's a base, but you spent 10 years at an airline company that probably now doesn't even have a base in Seattle, because you might end up moving. You might be in Arizona now, but you might end up moving to a different base that the airline might have a base there. And with the way the industry works, it wouldn't be beneficial for you to be moving to a different airline simply because you're moving to a different state. I hope you get that. Yeah. So definitely do the math. If you have, also consider if you have, let's say, friends and family. Let's say my airline has a base in Seattle and you have friends and family in Seattle. Fine, you might be away from your family longer periods of time when you start off, because you can't hold the trips that you want and stuff like that. However, if you do commute to Seattle, you have family that you can stay with. So you're not spending money on hotels. You're not spending money on crash pads. You don't have to live with strangers. So consider that. So for me, when I was listing the bases that I would work at, I listed every single base that the airline had, because at that time I didn't know what bases will be open by the time I applied. So I listed all the bases and I did the math. I was like, okay, I live in Seattle, so obviously that's number one. I know somebody that lives in Minnesota, so even if I have to commute there and I need help in terms of living somewhere, driving, or whatever it is, I know somebody, I have a friend in MSP. So if I get that as a base, although I would have to commute and fly to work, I know that when I get there, I have support there. Also, I know somebody in, I know somebody in New Jersey. So if I know somebody in New Jersey, then I know that if I should commute to New York or get based in New York and commute over there, I have support there. So I might have to commute 5-hour flight from Seattle to New York, but I have support there. I have friends. I have somebody who can drive me to work. If I have to stay somewhere for the night, I have a place where I can stay. So I don't have to worry about spending money on those things. So those are some of the things you have to consider as well. So you might have to commute. It might be hard. However, if you have family there, it will definitely ease it for you. You will be away from your kids and your family at home, but at least where you're going to, you also know somebody there. So you can make it work that way. The other thing also is that if you're commuting, let's say you have a partner and you're having to commute and maybe getting to spend time with your family is very limited. When you're working your flights, you can have the people on your benefit, your family, if you have them on your flight benefits, to work with you. I've worked trips where people went to Hawaii. I worked Hawaii with some people when they came along with their friends. Some came with their husbands, some came with their girlfriend, some came with their brother, their sister, their cousin, because they are on their benefits, to work the flight with them. So you work the flight to layover destination, you spend time with your family, and then you get them on the next available flight back home, and then you work your flight back home. So that's an option too. So the possibilities are endless. So you're not limited, so keep that in mind. So although commuting might be hard, you can always make it work for you. But I'm not here to tell you it's easy. That I cannot tell you. Like it won't be realistic for me to say that it's easy, because it's not. It's like literally working flights as well. You're just not getting paid for it because you're commuting. Sometimes you might not be able to make it to your commuting flight, and it means you have to sleep in the lounge, just to wait for the next flight available to take you home, or go to your crash pad, or go to a hotel, or sleep in the lounge, So there are people like who end up like sleeping in airports and stuff like that because they couldn't make it on their commute flight because the flight they worked, by the time they got to base, there were no other flights to take them back home. Evelina, you're welcome. Yes, so just be yourself, be authentic, answer your questions honestly. And I do have a video on how to on the event day and how to be successful. Definitely check it out as well. I have a playlist on how to become a flight attendant, and that's part of it. It would give you some tips on how to be successful. So it's I wouldn't say it's easy, but you have to be able to sell yourself. Yes, be able to sell yourself and market yourself. So for me, regardless of what I did in my past work life, even if I was cleaning gutters, like, it's about how you spin that to sell you to meet what the job is requiring. If the job requires you to have customer service experience, you might be cleaning gutters and picking up garbage. But at some point, you've probably had interactions with your coworkers, you've had interaction with your team members, you've had interaction with clients or customers. So it's about how you spin it. It's about how you sell it. So just listen, figure out the pain points of what the job is requiring or the skills that the job is requiring, and use those words as you're explaining your experience or sharing your experience by using the STAR method as well. Personally, I talk a lot. So I need the STAR method to keep me in check. Put me together. Oh my God. Evelina, sounds like my past as well. This is a third airline. I turned down an interview with, it wasn't the right time. Yeah, that was it for me too. I didn't even apply at all. Like, I literally just thought about it. I looked into it and I was like, nah, the conditions are kind of interesting. So I'm not going to Dubai. I don't want to live in the Middle East. And then Alaska happened. I was like, you know what? I have to be based somewhere else. I didn't even know that Alaska had a base in Seattle. Like, it was just weird timing. But the point is that it came to me several times. And the third time that it did, here I am. So don't be disturbed at all. Somebody tried 5 times for 5 years. Some tried 6 times. Like, there are people that have tried so many times over so many years, and some haven't gotten it still, and some eventually did. So definitely don't give up at all. Don't give up at all. And no matter how difficult people might say the job might be, or it's not worth it, it's blah, 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 it's this and this and that. It depends on the airline you're working with, and it depends on whether you're regional or mainline. There are regional airline flight attendants that are making $19, $17, $18, $20 an hour, whereas mainline is making $33, $32, $34, and depending on how many years, once you hit the 5th year is where the turning point is. Your turning point is usually at the 5th year, because that's when you get that huge bump that actually gives you the cushion that you need. So, like, if my standard of life, $34 or $33 or whatever, is able to sustain me, if I get to the point where I'm making $50 an hour, obviously it would feel a little bit better. I know the standard of living changes as time goes on, but you should also know that as time goes on, whatever a 5th year person is earning right now won't be the same amount that I would earn in my 5th year. Their pay increases all the time. So keep that in mind as well. But the pay, I would say it's okay. For what we do, it's definitely okay. And if your pay is not good, it depends. It's highly dependent on your spending, if you're commuting, and then also what do you call it? The airline you're working for. And then also, I feel like a major impact that influences your money situation or your financial is training. The reason behind that, and I'll probably do a separate video where I'll talk strictly on that, because I feel that's what made me successful in my transition. It's making sure you already have money saved up. Yes. Making sure you have money saved up. Yes. Hear me correctly. Making sure you have money saved. That way, while you're in training, you don't have to worry about your bills and your expenses and stuff like that, because while you're in training, the pay you're getting is not enough to sustain you, to pay your bills and sustain you at training. So you end up getting bills piled up, debt piling up. So once you get out of training, imagine if you already have debt sitting there for you. Your rent is still due. Your phone bill is still due. Power bill is still due, regardless of the debt you have sitting there. And you're now starting a job that you're trying to adjust to. What made me successful or made it easy for me to ease into the job was because I had saved up money already. So I had savings. My rent was always paid ahead by 1 month, which means I already have by the time I'm paying this month's rent, I already have next month's rent sitting there. So once I had that set up, when I was getting out of training, I didn't have any debt because I had saved. Everything was covered the way it should be. So I didn't have any debt. So when I got out of training, I did not have to fly a lot to make money. My first month, I didn't pick up any extra trips. What I worked was what I was assigned. That was it. Second month, I think I picked up 1 trip. Even with that, I swapped a 2-day for a 3-day. That was it. But not everybody can do that because we're not assigned a lot of trips. Like your average is supposed to be scheduled for 80 hours every month, give or take, plus or minus 7 hours or whatever. So if up to 90 hours, I think, but typically it's between 70, 80, thereabout. That's what you're getting right out the door. So if I'm not picking up any trips and I'm working 70 to 80 hours, you see how that's not a good amount of money. However, because of the savings that I had put down just to get me ready for this, because I did my research and people said that the pay, some don't even get paid at all. All you get is a stipend for food and that's it. So, and our pay is minimum wage for Atlanta, which is like very minimum because the minimum wage for Atlanta is like half of the minimum wage in Seattle. So that's a whole different story. But the point I'm making is that because I didn't have any debt, I was able to ease myself and I didn't have to fly too much. I didn't have to do the most. I was able to gradually work month 1, month 2, and then month 3, I started moving my schedule around and picking up stuff if I wanted to. So, but then that doesn't mean that it was easy or simple. Obviously, I can't do certain things. I can't go certain places. I can't be out there buying food and eating out, among other things. I have to control my spending because I have to make sure that the cash flow in and the cash flow out is balancing. We don't want any negative anywhere, you know? So you have to monitor your spend. You can just be out here. Layovers are great and all, but if you decide to go out and enjoy your layover, it means you're spending money. Can you afford that? Just because you're going to Greece, Athens, Greece, or you're going to Amsterdam, or you're going to London does not necessarily mean you have to go out and spend money and eat. You can meal prep and go to Amsterdam. Take your food with you, eat your meal, go out and take photos without spending any money. So take a walk around. So you have to be very strategic on how you're spending your money because once you're out of training, you're probably going to have debt waiting for you if you did not have your bills set up or you could not afford to do so. Like not everybody has it easy. I was fortunate, but not everybody has that. So you have to be mindful of that. And if you don't take care of the money situation, you're forced to fly so much, you get stressed out, you get burnt out, and now you cannot enjoy the job anymore. And then you want to quit, like other people that have quit, like from being in. And for me, having spent 6 weeks in training and all that stress and all that hassle, no. We're not giving up like that. We're going to make sure we do it right because it's too much involved, too much investment because I got my CJO in December last year. I went for training March this year. I was out of training April this year. So December, January, February, March, April. It took me about 6 months just to go through training, to get my CJO and to go through training. And I wasn't working then. I stopped working even before I applied to become a flight attendant. So imagine the amount of savings that I had to have sitting there just to take care of me throughout training before I got on the line and actually started earning good money. Because your first month's pay is usually not the best anyway because it's all over the place. Training money, all that flight money, it's a mess. So you have to be very strategic and plan accordingly. Who else? Let me go through some of the comments here. So, hey everybody, hello Vernell. What are the possibilities of overtime and are there minimum hours? No. Yes, there are minimum hours guaranteed. Your minimum hours guaranteed with the airline that I work for is but it is hot in here right now. The minimum hours guaranteed is the reserve days that you're working, and on each reserve day the minimum hour guarantee is 4.45 hours. So I think the last time I did the math, it came up to, for the 6 days, it came up to 28 hours and 30 minutes. However, those 6 days you're guaranteed the 28 hours and 30 minutes, but the rest of the month is yours. And you can work extra flights. You can work, one month I did 110 hours. The other month I did 120 hours of flying. There are people that have done up to 150, 140, 160. It's exhausting. I wouldn't want to do it, but you can fly more. And the beauty of being based in Seattle, which I love, love, love so much, is that we have domestic flights that are worth 20 hours. We have our international flights are worth 20 hours and more. So if I do 7 international flights in a month, that's 140 hours. Or if I'm able to strategically swap and move things around to work domestic trips, 3-day trips that are worth 20 hours each, and I do that 7 times in the month, that puts me at 140 hours. 140 hours by our base pay. 140 hours by the 34. 140 by 34. That puts you at 4,760. Remember, this is just the base pay. If you've watched my pay breakdown, this money will potentially end up being about 6,000 or almost 7,000, because there are additional stuff that you earn as you work. So this is just the hourly pay. It doesn't include your layover pay. It doesn't include your boarding pay. It doesn't include the sales you make on the flight. It doesn't include all of that. So this 5,000 will eventually end up being 6,000 or 7,000 more, if not 8, because I think you might potentially get to 8, because your layover pays alone can boost you up a bit. Yeah. So that's it. Like, the pay can be potentially really good. And over time, there's no minimum hours you have to work a minimum of 45 hours a month to be able to keep your benefits running, like your flight benefits and your medical and all that stuff. So even if you don't want to fly at all, maybe your mother, whenever your schedule is released, you drop everything. You post your trips, people pick it up. You're able to get people to pick up the trips from you, and all you're in with is your reserve days. You can choose to get people, you can give out your reserve days as well. People might swap your reserve days for trips, but the minimum number of hours, there are times when people don't work in the entire month because they are able to swap and get people to pick up everything. So, but then you're required to work a minimum of 40 hours. So even if you give out everything, you have to work a minimum of 40 hours. And 40 hours can be 2 international trips, 20 hours each, or no, not 2 international. Well, 2 international is 40, but depending on if you have like in Asia, those Asian destinations, you're a little bit more. They're like 22. There's some domestic trips that are 24 hours. Like, we got good trips. Like Haneda, for example, is worth 24 hours. So if you get Haneda in Amsterdam, that alone pushes you at your minimum for the month, and you're good to go. 2 trips and you're done for the month. So the minimum you have to work per month is 40 to 45 hours. I think it's 45 or 40. I'm not sure, but it's 40 something. And to keep your benefits, and that's it. Minimum hours guaranteed will be your reserve pay. But if you work with an airline company where you're put on reserve the entire month, I believe with American, the last I heard, their minimum paid hours for the month, if you're like on reserve and not holding a line, you're not a line holder, I think it's like 75 hours. So you get a guaranteed pay of 75 hours every month. If they use you more than 75 hours, then you get that extra on top of the 75. However, if they don't use you and they only use you for 40 hours, you still get the 75-hour pay. So that's a good thing about that. Herman says, peace, seniority is the name of the game. Probably. It is to an extent, but at the end of the day, I feel like as a new hire, your main goal should be being able to work your schedule. And you can only work your schedule when you, when you have enough room on your schedule. So if you have space on your schedule, you can pick up more trips. So If you want to work more trips, like for me, this month, all I did every week was to work one day trip and a 3-day. So the goal was to work 4 days in a week and get 3 days off. Although I think one of the weeks I ended up getting 4 days off because I could not get a 1-day trip that fit where I wanted it to fit. So I decided to just stick with the 3-day trip for that week. So first week I did my reserve days for 6 days straight. Second week I had a 3-day trip. I did New York and somewhere else. And then week 3 I did an Atlanta turn, which was a 1-day trip, and then followed by Amsterdam. And I did them back to back. So I do a 1-day trip and a 3-day, or a 3-day and a 1-day. So for the last week of August, what I'm doing is a 3-day trip. And then once I return the following day, I go to do a turn, and then I'm done for the month. That's all I'm doing this month. But for the month of September, as you guys will see in my schedule reaction video, that's not the case. September has been a mess, okay? September has been a mess to start off with. Because I have my continuous qualifications. I have to go in to get recertified to do the job. And after 6 months of being on the line, my 6th month will be in October, but I've been scheduled to go for my recertification in September. So I'll do a video probably about that too and talk more about it. But because of that and where that schedule is sitting on my calendar, it's making it hard for me to move my trips around. So I might just leave my schedule the way it is and just pick up a few things here and there, or I might still try and swap things before I do the reaction. But either way, you would all hear about it in my schedule reaction video. You can't see me. Oh yes, like I said, I'm trying to regulate my camera a bit, so that's why I try to go on and off. I said earlier that my camera has been overheating for whatever reason, even though I literally bought it like 30 days ago, brand new. So I don't know what's going on. So I try to regulate it by turning it off. And it's been really hot in Washington State this summer, so it's been really warm. So maybe that's why that was happening. But I try to regulate it by making sure that I'm not getting it to overheat. That's why I keep going on and off. But thank you for letting me know, because sometimes I don't know that I'm on or off. So it's great to be told that. They need to change that rule. If you were a flight attendant somewhere else, you will not lose. Unfortunately, see, it's happening again. That's what I'm talking about right there. So unfortunately, the airline companies are not connected. It's not like one huge company where we're all flight attendants for the same company. So the seniority level does not extend beyond the company that you work for. So that's how that works. And Shari said, I'm new here and thank you for this information. My interview's tomorrow. Oh my God, all the best. I hope I'm saying, is it Cherise? It's probably Cherise. Yeah, probably Cherise. But oh my God, congratulations. Go get that. Is it your face-to-face or your video interview? If it's your face-to-face, all the best. Which airline are you applying to? Let us know in the comment section. Good luck. Just be yourself. I do have a video on how to be successful at your event day. I do have a playlist on how to become a flight attendant, and that video is part of it. So definitely check it out, bud. Just be yourself. Take it one step at a time and enjoy the experience. The least you can do is to enjoy yourself. So I know you want to get the job, but enjoy yourself. And even if you don't get it, don't let that derail you. Like I said, there are people who have tried it 5 times. And go get that CJO. All the best. You got this. Get that CJO and come back home. Go for training and get the wings. That's how it works. Okay, so good luck. Vanessa, you have to look at your family too, as customer service, or you are a church you serve. That's an experience. Exactly. So whatever it is that you've done in your life, as long as you're interacting with people and interacting with others, that you can spin that. Yes, you can spin that. So I definitely agree, just as Joseph agrees as well. Cherie says, how much is pay while in training? If you apply to the airline company that I work for, pay is the minimum wage of Atlanta. So the minimum wage of Atlanta at the time that I went for training, it was, I think, what, $7 and some change. So, but if I live in Washington State. So if the airline you apply to has its training quarters in Washington State and they're paying minimum wage, then it would be like 15 or 16 or whatever. But apparently the minimum wage of Atlanta is 7, and I didn't know that. So I was like, oh, okay. But they will tell you all that information. If you're applying to the airline company that I applied to, when you go for your face-to-face interview, they would tell you what your training pay would be, what your flight attendant training would be, and then also what your pay actual when you get out of training would be. So they're very open and like plain about that. So nobody's gonna hide that from you for sure. But the base pay is definitely in the 30s as well. So starting off when you start the job itself. So it's well worth it. Very true. Seattle versus Atlanta minimum. Yeah, definitely. Shaya says, enjoying the info you're spreading for us. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And pack your food for your trips and also get a Hot Logic. I need to get a Hot Logic though. I don't have that yet, but I do meal prep. I always, when I'm going for a 3-day, I take 2 dinners and 2 breakfasts and snacks. And to warm your food in your room, look up Hot Logic. Yes, so with regards to heating up your food, the airline companies that we work for has contracts with hotels. So some of the contracts are that the hotel must have a microwave in your hotel room. Other contracts are that the hotel must have a microwave in the hotel. So at minimum, regardless of what hotel you lay over in, you should have a microwave in the hotel, even if it's not in your room at minimum. However, the microwave might be broken or whatever. You might get stuck somewhere at the airport and you're hungry. You can't make it to your layover hotel and you still need to heat up your food. That's where the Hot Logic might come in. It's a good way to heat up your meal on the go. So it's definitely very useful. I do plan on doing a shopping haul where I buy some of the stuff that I need for what I do, and then I'll talk about all those things as a whole. Being a new flight attendant, the things that I use from my luggage, from my carry-on personal item to my lunchbox to the Hot Logic. I don't have yet because the bowls that are required to be heated in it, I don't like using them because they're a little bit heavy, but it's definitely a way to heat up your meals for sure. So you can definitely consider investing in that. It is on Amazon. You can just look it up. So Vernell is definitely right. Chariot says, to be honest, I would take any base as long as I get in on the East Coast, of course. Definitely. At some point, that's all that matters. You being able to get in and get the job. And then from there, you can move around. Because like I said, with the airline that I'm working with, recently they did a huge base transfer, and they did it sooner than later because a lot of the new hires were struggling to adjust to transfer, to commute, and with the weather issues that were happening during the summer, it did not help. Cancellations, delays, people can't make it to work. It was just too much. Miss P, how does SeaTac Seattle rank as a senior base? Seattle has been senior for some time. Like, it's very senior for sure because it just recently just opened up. Everybody was surprised that it opened up this year. So it just opened up recently. A lot of the people that are a little bit junior than are not that senior to me. Literally did not even have it open when they were going through training. So it's definitely senior. It's been senior for a while. Like, there's senior people that are there that waited 8 years just to get into Seattle. So when it's open, since it's open now, it's like we're privileged to be able to get in right out of training because people were not able to. What is your take? Joseph said, what is your take on flight attendant academics? I have one academies. I have one located in Scottsdale where I live, and I was thinking about attending. So before you attend, first of all, disclaimer, I don't have detailed information about flight attendant schools and academies and everything, right? However, before you decide to attend any flight attendant academy, remember these things. One, the flight attendant, the airline companies right now, job descriptions, I haven't seen any. When I did my video on all the airline companies, the major airline companies that were hiring in the US, none of them stated that you had to have attended a flight attendant academy or school. Secondly, even if you do decide to go check with the airlines that you want to apply to. Check their job description to see if they require you to have some sort of degree from a flight attendant academy. Thirdly, these airline companies, their training is very specific to their airlines. So you going to a flight attendant academy does not certify you to work for my airline, to work for United, to work for American, to work for JetBlue or whatever. It doesn't certify you, because you have to go through training and certification with the airline company that decides to hire you. So even if you do decide to go through the flight attendant academy, it doesn't guarantee you a job. It doesn't guarantee you still have to go through the training that is required to work with that airline, required by the FAA. So keep that in mind. So before you go to any flight attendant school, research with the airlines to see if the job description states that you should have attended a flight attendant school or an academy. So definitely do that first. Don't just go, or you're going to waste your money. Some countries you do. I was in training class with somebody who did attend a flight attendant school, because the country that she was living in initially required that you attend the flight attendant school, you go through that, completed, and then you come and apply for the job. In the United States so far, I haven't seen any major US airline company requiring you to go through flight attendant school before you apply. I haven't seen that. The other thing also is, even airline companies in the Middle East, like I said, every airline is different. Their service delivery is different. Look at the service delivery from Qatar Airlines, from Emirates to Korean Airlines, to Delta, to American, to United. Like even the service delivery for each one is different. Safety might potentially to an extent be the same, but the training as a whole is very, very unique and different to every airlines. There might be similarities, so no one academy can certify you to work for every single airline. So if you do want to attend the school, is your choice, but I didn't do it. I only met one person that did in my training class of 150 flight attendants that were hired. And the only reason why they did it was because the country where they lived in before they applied to where we applied to and got in required that they did so. So do your research on that first. And I haven't heard United, Southwest, or American Airlines requiring people who aspiring flight attendant to have gone to flight attendant school. The job does not even state that it requires you to have flight attendant experience. It doesn't. So keep that in mind. The camera. Trendy says that camera needs its own air conditioner. I'm telling you, at this point, I need to get a portable air conditioner and put it right behind it, because it is very temperamental right now. That's a good one. Renelle says, also keep your fan on. Yeah, I'll definitely, I need to do that. Like, it's just too much going on. At this point, throw the whole camera away. A good tip, if you don't get your CJO, apply for a ticket counter. Yes, for 6 months. Then you can apply again 6 months later, and stuck your money and your pocket at the same time. Yes, in addition to his point or your point, if you, let's say you are a gate agent, right, for the airline company that I work for, and you've been a gate agent for, let's say, 5 years, right? I think it's up to 5 years. You have to hit 5 years for that to, I don't know if there's a cap or a starting point, but all I know is that if you've been a gate agent for 5 years, or let's say 6 years, and you transition to become a flight attendant with the same airline, let's say you were working with my airline and you were a gate agent and you transitioned to become a flight attendant, your starting pay will, as a flight attendant, will not be the 34 or 33 or whatever it is that we're getting right now. I can't even remember right now. They will give you the equivalent. So at the end of the day, you might be a flight attendant in year one of being a flight attendant, but you wouldn't get a year one flight attendant pay. You would get the equivalent, like from you being a gate agent, Because I know somebody that had been a gate agent for, there's a balancing that they do, because obviously the job requirement and expectations are different for flight attendants compared to gate agent. So there has to be a tally and a balancing sheet somewhere where the responsibilities and the expectations meet, and your tenure based on what the expectations are being a flight attendant meet. But they had been a gate agent for several years, and because they had been for several years, a certain number of years, they got, ultimately when they became a flight attendant, they started off with the 5-year pay. That's what I know. And our 5-year pay is, I think, almost $50 an hour. I think it's like 40 something an hour. So it's beneficial. So even if you don't get in as a flight attendant right away and you become a gate agent, it's okay, because you're still with the company. You can apply to become a flight attendant later on. And if you've been if you stay with the company for a long time as a gate agent, then it means if you transition to become a flight attendant, you're not going to start off with the first year pay. They give you like the equivalent or whatever to match it. So it can be beneficial. So to Vernell's point, is definitely true. Ticket counter, customer service, reservations. Once you've been with the company, your tenure benefits you when you transition to become a flight attendant. Your pay would be influenced by how long you've been with the company, regardless of what you were doing. Whether you were cargo, whether you were whatever, it would, as long as you were in flight, it would impact it. So keep that in mind. So it's not a lost cause. Yes, it's not a lost cause. So for you, Joseph, for example, that you are a mom, you live somewhere, you live in Arizona, we don't have a base there, you can potentially consider being a gate agent, a ticket counter, some reservations or something, and in flight at that allows you to come to work and go home. So you're not flying all around. That way you're still living at home with your family, you're with the company, and eventually if you do get to the point where your kids are grown, you're comfortable enough to leave them, and even if you have to commute and your quality of life is better and allows you to be able to do that and leave home for a period of time, then you'll be able to transition to becoming a flight attendant as well. So yes, that's definitely an option. Thank you so much for that point, Vernell. That's a really good tip, because there's several ticket counter or gate agents right now. I know the job for a gate agent is hard, dealing with all those customers and the stress and the hassle with that. It's not easy, but if you're able to hold on, there are people that have done it for 10 years, 11 years, 15 years, and they've now transitioned to becoming flight attendants. So it's definitely a good way to get in as well. So keep that in mind. Like the video, guys. Like the videos. Like the videos. Become a member of the channel as well. As I was saying, I do want to essentially get to the point where I create exclusive content for members, where we can chat, where we can have one-on-one like exclusive conversations and stuff like that. So definitely join the channel, become a member, and support your girl, okay? Get into it. All right, so yes, I'll go back to the chat quick second, but I do want to go back to the points briefly just to talk about the process of becoming a flight attendant. I did talk about the resume. Use a good resume template. The other thing also is that once you submit your application, you should get I think you would receive a questionnaire for an assessment. So you do an online assessment. I heard some airlines are getting rid of the video interviews. I don't know how true that is, but you do an assessment, and then you do a virtual job tryout. The virtual job tryout is where you do get like scenarios that mimic the job. So I personally liked it because it allowed me to get like an insight into what the job expectations were. So I like the virtual job tryout. And honestly, somebody asked me this one time in the comment section about the assessment, how to like be able to get past that stage and be successful. You have to take your time, and those questions are psychological questions. So keep that in mind. Like, there are psychological questions. There's no right or wrong answer. The first assessment, at least during my time that I did, it's like a psychological questionnaire where it's meant to gauge your personality, your temperament in a way. So there's no right or correct answer. So honestly, if you respond to the questions and you're not able to move on because of that assessment, it probably means even though you really want to do this job, it might not be good for your personality trait or temperament. Because trust and believe, I have worked with people that have personality traits and temperaments that are not suitable for this job. That are not, because you can end up dealing with a whole different level of crazy, and that would require a whole different level of temperament or personality to be able to deal with and handle. So keep that in mind. I wasn't training with somebody or some people that could not speak in public or could not interact with people in public. And in my mind, it's like you are in a tube with if you're doing an international, it's 300 people. You're interacting with 300 people. You have 300 people looking at you. You have to brief the exits. You have to talk to people. You have to instruct. You have to direct. You have to, you can't not lie during that assessment because it's supposed to gauge that. So if you get somebody to take it for you and you're able to move through, you might think, oh, it's nothing. Trust me, when you get on the line and you get tested, you get pushed beyond your boundary. Like once you get pushed and shoved, stressed out, conditions will not permit you to hold back whatever it is that you're hiding, that you're keeping under control. So keep that in mind. That's how sometimes you might find people fighting with customers. I'm not about to fight with anybody. I'm not going to be that flight attendant who's throwing hands with no customer. We're not doing that. We are not doing that. But there are people that have the temperaments that will take them there. I'm not doing that. Nobody's touching my face, okay? So I'm not touching you either. So, and all that goes into temperament. If somebody can piss you off to the extent where it takes you to that level, it has to do with you. So those things, those things count. Those assessments are important. So if you get somebody to take it for you and you're able to pass it, because when you're on the job, you get asked, you would get put in situations where you're asking yourself, where in the world were you created from? Who created you? Who trained you? It's so crazy. So you have to keep in mind that you will be tested. There will be trials and tribulations. But your temperament, your personality will tell whether you're able to overcome or succumb to it. So keep that in mind. So those assessments are critical. The other thing is that once you do go through the assessment and the online job tryout, the virtual job tryout for us, like I said, gave us scenarios that mimicked the job. So I believe I don't want to share because I want everybody to get the experience on their own, but you would get scenarios that mimic the job itself. So that's something that I appreciated it because it allowed me to see what the job was before even going too far into the application process. The other thing also is once you do the assessments, the virtual job tryout, and then you do the face-to-face interview, please, not the face-to-face, the video interview, please treat your face-to-face interview and your video interview or online interview as one. Just because you're at home behind a camera, in front of a camera, does not mean that you should not give it the same care and attention. Don't go wearing boxer shorts and then you're well dressed up and at the bottom you're not. Because what if you have to get up and pick up something? What if you have to get up and show something? I've had meetings where at some point of the meeting I had to get up and grab something. And imagine if I wasn't dressed like I was in a meeting, then you're stuck. So, and honestly, the way you dress influences your mood, your appearance, the aura around you. So dress for the part. Whether it's a video interview or in-person interview, make sure you're well groomed, you're looking professional, you're keeping it cute and simple. That's why the STAR method is important because it allows you to keep your answers and your responses in a well-structured manner. So keep that in mind. The face-to-face is very important. It's so interesting. I just have to share this moment because when I went through my face-to-face interview, the way it was set up, we weren't even though we came in together, we didn't leave together. So during my training, the portion of the facility where people who did not get their CJOs passed was near where we were, a waiting space for us when I was in training and being assessed on what do you call it, on doors, on no evacuation drills and stuff like that. And it was so sad and disheartening to see that these people are literally leaving here and they're thinking that they're potentially going to get their email with their CJO. And having gone through it, I know they're not, because of how the process went for me. I don't know if they've changed it, but it was so surreal, because to know that I was just like them like a few months ago, and if I was walking where they were walking right now, it meant that I would not have gotten my CJO. And to see them, to look at them still be happy, excited, and knowing that they did not get their CJO, that's why they are where they are right now, but they don't know that, you know. It was hard. So it's the face-to-face is definitely a lot. And once again, be honest, be truthful, go there, ask genuine question, interact with people, be friendly, be nice, pay attention to detail. I can't stress this enough. And don't go trying to steal someone's shine. You don't have to be. Honestly, the most popular person I would say during my face-to-face interview did not even get their CJO. Popular in the sense that they were very loud, they were very outspoken, they were out there. Everybody at least knew their face because they were answering questions, they were very involved, they were out loud, like they put themselves out there, but they didn't get their CJO. They literally did not get their CJO, and everybody noticed it because of how outspoken and how out there they were. So you don't have to be the most seen or heard person, but during your one-on-one, that's the time to connect with the interviewer. Because there's a session where you're going to have an actual one-on-one, where it's you and the interviewer. That's where to connect with the interviewer, because their input might not be the sole decision to keep you or to give you your CJO. However, it might be an influencing factor. So keep that in mind as well. Herman says, absolutely true. You have to stay cool. You have to stay in control of yourself and never make it personal. Exactly. I don't take anything when somebody's angry because they want to move a seat and I can't move them at a certain. I'm gonna be honest. Like, hey, I can't move you right now. Right now, the power is in the gate agent's hands. My job is not to worry about where you assigning seats. I don't do that. That's not me. Obviously, I'm not gonna tell them it's not my job, but I'm just gonna make it clear that I understand what you want and what you want to do. Once we take off, it's fair game. But while we're on land, you can't just be honest with people. And when you're communicating with people, just empathize with them, because some people go being aggressive because they know what they're saying is the right way, is the right thing. And because of that power, it's just that power struggle. I don't get paid extra to argue with anybody. I'm sorry. No, I don't. So I'm not about to argue with anyone. I would talk to you as nicely and empathize. And even though I know that there's nothing I can do, I'm not going to emphatically just state it like that and be rude about it. I would at least be nice about it and say, hey, it's not possible. These are the options. Give the solution before you give the rejection or the no, or you say the no. Let's put it that way. Vernell says, take a etiquette class on how to approach people in public. Yes, if you do want to do that, you can do that as well. As for me, the advantage that I have had in life is that all the jobs that I've had has required interacting with people, either clients or associates. So I've had the opportunity to commute. I know I have an accent, so when I'm speaking, I take my time. I know I can potentially talk very fast. So I have made, over the years, I have made conscious effort to take my time when I'm speaking, because I know I have an accent. So once you learn yourself, you figure out approaches and solutions to make yourself better. So when I'm doing my exit row briefing, I take my time to enunciate and pronounce every single word to make sure there's clarity, to avoid people saying, huh? I didn't hear you. What did you say? No, we're not doing that. So because I know that I have an accent and I tend to talk fast, I have to make a conscious effort to take my time when I'm speaking, and also to pronounce it and enunciate my words clearly so everybody can hear me. So the same thing goes to the person who has a hot temper. If you have to if somebody says something rude to you, if you have to pause for 10 seconds to gather yourself, do so. Like when I'm angry, I don't speak, because whatever I might say in this case will hurt you or offend you. So I'm not going to speak. I would walk away if I have to. I'm not about to engage with anybody. I'm not about to have a physical altercation with anybody. I don't get paid enough for that. That was not part of the pay scale. Fight with customers and get an increase or a bonus. No, it's not. It's not part of it. Like, no, nobody's getting paid enough for that. No. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. So definitely, if you have to take an etiquette class, please do so. Whatever you have to do to make yourself better, self-improve. Sharia said, and it's not like you're going to see exactly ever since I started flying, I haven't seen a passenger twice. Even if I did, I wouldn't even recognize them. Like, literally, I'm on auto. Hi, hello, welcome. It's auto. Like, I'm interacting, I'm being nice. I might remember your name while we're on the flight. Once you get off that plane, I don't know you. I see people say hi to me all the time on the concourse, and I'm like, did I meet you? Okay, you were probably on the last flight. Like, I don't even recognize your face. So you won't see them again. So why be stressed? Why be angry? Why be fighting? It's just too much drama, too much stress. We ain't here for that. No, it's too exhausting. Joseph said, how often does mainline hire? Is it one time a year? Well, it depends. I know the airline that I work for, at the time when I was applying, this year alone, their goal was to hire 6,000 flight attendants, and they did it in waves. So the application to apply was out there for since last year, July. It's been happening for some time now. I saw it since was it July? I know this year alone, the application link was there from January all the way to, I think the last time I didn't see it was this month. I think last month they stopped hiring. This last month or this month, either July or August, one of them. The link is no longer there. However, it doesn't mean that they haven't already hired so many people, but then they're just waiting for training. So keep that in mind as well. But it's not one time. It's not. Next year, for example, they're hiring 4,000 people. And my training class had 150 people. And there was a class every week. A class was graduating every week. So do the math and see. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people going through the hiring process, and a lot of people having to go through training. Yes, there was a training class graduating every week. So if I graduated this week, another class graduated the following week. That's how close by everything was. So yeah, please like the video, drop your questions in the comment section below. Bernell said, people do not understand when they are on the line. You are under federal law. Exactly. And a lot of the time, some of the rules that we have are federal law. So it's like, what do people do that, like somebody's trying to go to the restroom, right? And we're literally about to take off. We're taxiing, with the doors closed, we've pushed back from the gate, and the plane is literally on the active runway trying to make its way to the tarmac where we're going to take off, right? Nobody can be standing up. So if I see a passenger standing up, grabbing a bag, I'm not about to fight you. I'm not going back and forth. All I'm going to do is to make a PA. If you're close by, I'll talk to you. But if not, and I'm the flight lead and I can't see you to talk to you, we're just going to make an announcement to say that if you're standing, take your seat. If not, we can't take off. So we give you a few seconds to see if you're going to sit. If you don't sit, we're going to follow through again. You have to take your seat or we won't be able to take off. We would have to let the captains stop the process. So then everybody is aware that because of you, we can't take off. So we have to tell the pilots to not take off, literally stop and not move the plane. That's a federal regulation. It's a safety thing. If they take off and you're standing, you're rolling in the plane right now with your head hitting some seat. Because I've had a situation whereby we told a passenger, you know how we go through the cabin to tell people, hey, fasten your seatbelt, do this, do that, put your tray table away. People don't get the concept behind the reason why we tell people to do the things they do. So if your seat is all the way back and we tell you to put it upright, the reason behind it is because if the plane should stop abruptly, or it should take off in a way, or hit rough air or whatever, that seat is literally in front of too close to somebody for the seat belt to hold them back. So it increases the potential of somebody's head, so the person sitting behind you, to have their face hit the back of your seat because your seat is not upright. That's the whole point. It's not about looking pretty. It's a safety reason. If your seat is all the way back, if your armrest is not in resting position, and the plane should hit rough air or take off in a way, and you slide, chances of you sliding off and your body hitting the seat next to you is higher because your armrest was up and not down. So there's a reason behind all these things. So for me, when I'm going through, I'm like, you need to put your tray table away, or when we take off or land, you might potentially injure yourself. I add that so they know that I'm not trying to mother you or treat you like a kid, but there's a reason behind it. If your seat is back, I'm like, put your seat forward so that when we land or take off, the person sitting behind you doesn't get hurt. There's a reason behind it. So that's why I won't fight with you. I'll just tell you what the rules are. And the rules are that you're responsible for your luggage. So if you pack your luggage and it's too heavy, unless you're physically disabled and you can't hold the bag, you're responsible for putting your bag in that bin. You're responsible for getting that bag out. So you can't get mad or try and fight with somebody simply because you want something done that can't be done for you. So it's just one of those things. Like we're under federal law. Like you can get fined like thousands of dollars for just doing the most for no reason. So yeah, that's very true, Renault. It was at the end of December last year because it popped up on my phone that your airline was hiring. Yes, they've been hiring this entire year. Just recently, I think this month when I checked the site, it wasn't there anymore. But I know they had been consistently hiring. I went through my application process in November. So they've been doing it for a while now. But all right, y'all, we've been here for almost 3 hours. Oh my God, this has been the longest live ever. It has been the longest live ever. But yeah, I do appreciate you all for being here. Like the video, share the video. Also, once again, become a member of the channel, support the channel. The goal, like I said, once again, is to eventually have exclusive members videos or chat or lives where we can actually have one-on-ones, specific questions if you have. But yeah, any more questions before I say bye-bye to you all today? I finally made it to the live. I know it's been long overdue. It's been long overdue. So let me know what your final thoughts are. Thank you all so much for watching this live. Let me know what your final thoughts are. Thanks for the information. All right, Trendy, you're welcome. I am here to serve. Joseph said, I work in the healthcare industry, and the reason why it's taking me this long is because my permanent resident is still in process. Oh yeah, that's true. I think you either have to be a citizen or have permanent residency, be able to be, yeah. But honestly, just check with other airlines too. So my next trip is, when is my next trip? I do have a trip this weekend. I think it's between, let's see, what's my next trip? I do have a 3-day coming up. Yes, I do have a 3-day coming up. It's this weekend. I think it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yes, and then I have a 1-day afterwards. Yes, I have Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then I have a 3-day right afterwards, and that will be the end for August, and then I start September. So I have 2 more trips for this month, and I'm done for the month. But yes, definitely just look into it. Look into other airlines as well, because honestly, if you're younger now and you do want to do this as a career, start now. Yeah, I wish I started when I was 21 years old. I mean, my airline, you need to be 21 years, so I can't do it at 18. Some you can do at 18. There are some airlines that I think it's 18 or 19 or something, yes. But for us, you have to be 21 years. But I personally wish that I started when I was 21, because think about it. If I start when I'm 21, by 31, I would have had 10 years of seniority. So I would have been senior and not necessarily be senior in terms of my age. But if you start at 31, 10 years later, you're 41. I mean, you're still young. Life starts at 40, right? Begins at 40. So if you can start soon, do it then later, because it's worth it. It might be a struggle from the beginning. However, it's worth it. Like I said, in my pay breakdown video, I spoke to a flight attendant that had been flying for 30 something years, and he's capped out on his pay, but he's making about $14,000 a month. And I could see how that would happen, because if I do a international, I'm making $1,000 or whatever. If they do the same international, purser qualified and everything, if they're a purser or flight lead on that international flight or service leader, they're making over $2,000 on one trip. They're making $2,000 on one trip, over $2,000 on one trip. So if they do that 7 times in the month, that's $14,000. 6 times, that's also almost $14,000, if not more. So it's a good career, and the job itself is not difficult. I think the hardest part is dealing with the customers and boarding and all that chaos, among other things. But all things being equal, it's not a difficult job. It's not. It really isn't. I've had many harder jobs. I've been in the banking industry, financial industry. Well, why is there a separation? Well, they know why. I've been in retail. I've been in e-commerce. I work with Amazon, and then also I've been in the health sector as well. So, and I've been in events management as well. So this is easy. Just about said, which is why I'm planning and doing my race. Definitely do so. Yes. Yes, my next trip is definitely coming up this Friday, so I have tomorrow off. Today, actually, I did community engagement. That's why I'm all branded up. Trust me, it wasn't for the life. I came home like this. I did community engagement today as part of my new hire situation. They have all this things that we do every month, and this month was community service volunteer work. So we're out here volunteering and helping our community, so that's what I did today. So even though it's my 3 days off, I had this scheduled in between, so we're helping the community and volunteering and all of that. So that's what I did, and that's why I'm all branded up. Trust me, this is not for this video. The trauma. Thank you for all this information. You're welcome, Giuseppe. Thank you so much. Where are you going? Well, I cannot disclose it, but it is a domestic trip. It's a 3-day domestic trip, because people are crazy here in these streets. Not you, Vernell, to be specific, but people are crazy. So I can't say where I'm going. But once I get there, and I happen to, if I vlog it, I will definitely show. I do plan on showing you guys what I spent, assuming I do go on a layover or a trip, and I do not take food or meal prep, how much I would spend. And if I do take meals, how much I would spend as well. I want to do like a whole series on pay and expenses, and how to like the finance aspect of being a flight attendant. You're spending, how much you can potentially save, and all that good stuff based on your pay. All that, like a series on pay and stuff like that. So because the money is very important. You're 29. Yeah. Oh, okay. That's good. It's still not too late, girl. There are I work with somebody that was they had been flying for, was it 47 years? 47. So even if they started flying at the age of 18 plus 47, that's 65 years old, and they're still flying. Yeah, they're still flight attendants. So age is nothing but a number, but I say 21 because, or whenever 21 is when you can apply to become a flight attendant with my airline. I say 21 because after getting into the job and seeing the potential earning that you can get and the flexibility of the job, because when I was in school, my goal was to work in corporate, become a manager, do all that good stuff. And I eventually got there and then enjoy it because your paperwork follows you everywhere. There's no work-life balance. You're dealing with the same people over and over again. If you don't like somebody, you're still stuck with them for life. I mean, as long as you're working with a company. But switching to this, there are flight attendants that I've worked with that I'll never work with again. Even if I would, it would be probably one more time somewhere in my lifetime. But it's that flexibility and that separation. So if I don't like you, I don't have to fly with you. I don't have to work with you. If you don't like me, you don't have to work with me. If I see a passenger today and I deal with them, I don't have to ever see them again. I won't ever see them again. The odds are very small. So that's why I say I wish I started earlier, but it's one of those things where maybe if I had started earlier, I wouldn't last as long. So it doesn't really matter, but definitely there are people who just got right out of college and did this and have been doing this forever. This is the only career they've had. And I'm just saying, imagine if you get something like that, it's great, but it's never too late. Yeah, it's definitely never too late. So you can still make it out there. No young, no more. I wish I could have started early too. Yeah, definitely. Tiff, oh my God, you're amazing. I can't believe you're live streaming. I am trying to, but my camera, it's not letting me be great right now. But you've helped me a lot. I am week 5 of training. Oh my God. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. How is training going? How is week 5? Oh my God. What happened in week 5? Week 5 was aircraft week. I think it's wide bodies. Oh my God. You're going to do the assessments and everything. Week 5 is a lot. Honestly, the whole training is a lot. Some people have week 5 being their hardest. Some people have week 4 being their hardest. For me, week 3 was the hardest for me because it was a huge turning point. Those evacuation drills, that week 3 set the tone and the foundation for week 4 and 5 for me. So that was that was the point where I was like anxious the day before the assessment. Like, oh my God, am I going to be able to do this? Like, a lot of us are failing. We don't know what to do. We're getting things wrong. Are we ready? Am I ready? And that was like the point where week 3 was when I had I was in an anxiety attack, but I literally got that scare. Like, oh my God, am I going to be able to do this? Are we going to be able to do this? Like, oh wow, no, it's happening for real. You know, that scare in that moment. But once I got past week 3, week 5 was a lot, week 4 was a lot, but it was just aircraft door. It was just a lot of information, but it wasn't as intense for me as week 3. Week 3 was a lot because of the drills and how automated and robotic the process was. So it was definitely a lot for me. I could not. I was like, okay, I'm ready to go. Sign me, check me out now. I'm good. Where do I sign? But congratulations. Oh my God. Hopefully you get through the assessment. What is today? Today is Tuesday. So you should be on an aircraft right now. You should be learning one of the aircrafts today, one of the wide bodies. Today is Wednesday. You should be on the last aircraft type of aircraft. It should be a wide body. So definitely get through that. The assessment for week 5. I think you're going to do both assessments this week. You should have done the narrow body for week 4 on on Monday of week 5, and then you do your assessment for the wide bodies, I think, at the end of week 5. But it's not hard. It's not difficult. Just pay attention to the details, and those e-learnings are the key. I'm telling you. Those e-learnings, the sauce, it's in that e-learning, I'm telling you. But yeah, I'm so glad you've made it so far. I know it's not easy, and around this time is when you might see people go home too. So just brace yourself for that. It gets emotional, it gets hard, but at the end of the day, it's your journey, and you can only take care of you. You can only count on you. Atifi said, week 5 is a little bit hard, but yeah, week 3 was the hardest because we just didn't know anything exactly. But you'll be prepared by week 5, exactly. So for me, week 3 was by week 4, I got instead of the drills and everything becoming or feeling automated, I actually understood what I was doing. So whenever I picked up a flashlight, I knew why I was picking up a flashlight. Whenever I was pointing my flashlight, I knew why I was pointing my flashlight. Whenever I pointed my flashlight at the door, I knew what I was looking for. I was looking to see if the door was armed or not before I actually opened it to engage the slide. So it's definitely much better as time goes on. Week 5 will feel difficult because I think you do the wide bodies from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and something else happens on Thursday and Friday. I can't even remember, but it might seem hard. Well, was it hard for me? Honestly, it might seem hard, but it wouldn't be. Just focus on the e-learn. I think it's a timing issue because you have limited time. That's why. You don't really have time to study. You don't have time to look over things. And at this point, you're getting frustrated. You're getting tired because you've been there for almost 6 weeks now. So you're getting to the point where you're over the stress. You're literally like over the stress. So then it makes everything seem more stressful than it should be. So it's kind of a weird feeling, but I know by week 5 I had checked out. By week 5 I was ready to leave. I was like, you know what, just give me my wings and let me go at this point. Just get me out of here. So that makes it hard for sure, but the assessment was not hard. I think on that assessment I had 97. I think I got one answer wrong or so. I think I had 97. Yeah, I think on that. So it wasn't that hard. Yeah, because I think the week 4 assessment, I had 100%. Yeah, you got this. You've been able to get through week 3. Just say that. Like the fact that you've been able to pass week 3, you're good to go. You're squared up. You're all set to go. You're gonna be good. You're all right. Congratulations. Likely we haven't lost. Oh, you haven't lost anybody yet. Oh, that's great. All right. Yeah, we have a wide body assessment on Friday and Doors Day on Saturday. Likely. Oh, that's good. That's good. But Doors Day is the day. Doors Day is the day that people will definitely potentially get sent home. Doors Day is a big day, but I will say take it one door at a time. When you're studying, take it one aircraft at a time. Use flashcards to separate the aircrafts, the visual checks, and everything. Do that separation. If you take a 767, the doors that you have for the 767, how to arm it, write it down, what the visual checks are. As you write and take notes down, you learn that way too. That can help you with your memory. I created flashcards that I did not use, but because I created them, I studied and I learned that way. So as I was creating them, I was learning. So even though I didn't refer to them again, I still used it. It helped me. So definitely, oh my God, wide bodies is a lot, but the assessment is not hard. It's not difficult. It's not difficult at all. Definitely a lot of information, but it's not difficult at all. For now, as long as you keep flexibility, you can be a flight attendant as long as you want. Exactly. You have to be very flexible and be open and don't let the issues, because like I spoke about summer flying in my last video, it can be a lot, especially when you're commuting. You commute, you get to your base ready to work a flight at 12 noon. The next thing you know, the flight gets delayed for 2 hours, back and forth, left and right. The next thing you know, you're sitting there at the airport with no sleep for 24 hours. So it can be a lot, and it's too much. It can be stressful, and I know there were people that got on the line quite recently that were literally on the verge of quitting because of how complex and stressful the job became. So just take it one day at a time. Always look back at the reason why you decided to become a flight attendant and your why on why you became a flight attendant, and then also the 6 weeks of training, or 5 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever airline you work for. Like whenever you get stressed out and you really want to quit because you can't take it anymore, think of the time you invested to becoming the flight attendant that you are. For me, it took me about 6 months. So I'm not about to let 6 months of my life go to waste simply because they canceled a flight and I'm stuck at the airport for 3 hours. So now I'm mad and I'm stressed. So I'm not going to do this anymore. Or I couldn't get the trips that I wanted or something. Or they worked me into my day off and I didn't get paid because they didn't hit the threshold that qualifies or triggers that extra pay. Like, those little things would happen, or you getting flights getting delayed and you not properly getting compensated for your time wasted here and there, among other things, you know. But when you look at the bigger picture, it all comes together in the sense that you also get flight benefits. So at the end of the day, you're not getting paid for sitting here for an hour because it's your actual flight pay. You're still getting paid for your time being away from your base. That's the layover pay, though that you're getting paid, but it's not your $34 hourly pay. But look at the fact that you do have flight benefits. You're able to fly for free. If you have a companion on your benefits, or your husband or whoever you add on as a companion, they're able to fly for free. If I can fly to Ghana for $10, and if I wasn't a flight attendant and I was flying to Ghana, I would have had to pay almost $2,000 for basic economy. So if I'm flying back home to my home country from Seattle, it costs me about $1,900, $1,700, almost $2,000 for basic economy from Seattle to JFK to Ghana, Accra, Ghana. But as a flight attendant, if I do want to fly on standby, it's $10. Obviously, there are issues with regards to you being able to get a seat or not. But if I jump seat where I sit in the flight attendant seat, that if that seat is available by the time I'm booking it, I will get on that flight. And it would have only cost me $10 from the US to Accra, Ghana. Whereas if I wasn't a flight attendant, because the $10 is the taxes and fees or whatever, I would have paid almost $2,000. So you have to weigh it. So am I going to get angry because I didn't get paid for an hour sit or that 2 hour sit on this flight that I got delayed? No, I'm not going to leave the job. I spent 6 weeks of my time with minimum wage pay and 6 months just going through the whole process. So always look back to those things just to keep you going, because when you get to the level where it's worth it, it is worth it. It is worth it. Yeah, so you said you have a wide body assessment. All the best on your wide body assessment. Doors Day will be a lot. Doors Day, honestly, I tuned out. I don't know where I was. I don't remember anything. All I know was that I was going through the motions of arming and disarming door. Thankfully, I did not have to redo anything. But that tail cone on that 717 almost got me. That red strap almost got me. But no. But it will be a lot. But just take it easy. Take it one day at a time. Study. You will have to put in the time. But if you do put in the time and the work, you will be successful. Don't stress. After you get through Doors Day, you're going to be like, this was not as bad as I thought it was. Like, you'll be great. Good luck. All the best, though. All the best. Go get that wing. Go for your graduation. Take those photos and those videos. Atifi said, yeah, that is so true. You wouldn't want to quit when you are working for an airline after 6 months, especially after going through that long, hard training. Exactly. That is why you should also do your research if the airline is what you want and if their values align with yours. That's true, because seniority is very important. And the more time you waste, because if you start with this airline and you stop and then you go work with a different airline, you're starting all over again. You're going to go for training there too. They're not going to say because you work with this airline and you've been trained for 6 weeks and you're certified by the FAA, it means that you're okay to work with them. No, every airline has customized training. So you have to go through their training. Their aircraft are sometimes customized for them. So it might be a 737, 800 or whatever, but it might have certain customizations that might be different from my airline's 737, 800 or whatever, and their training might be different. Their way of service delivery might be different. So it doesn't work that way. So that's why if you're going to work with this airline, I would advise that you should be prepared to stay with them, unless maybe you get laid off because of like what COVID happened and people getting laid off and all that. That is a good opportunity to switch your jobs because you were forced out, you know. And even with that, I heard if you had a seniority thing or whatever, they recycle it. I'm not sure how that works. I don't know. Or maybe it's just your employee number that they recycle. They give back to you. No, they give back. I don't know. But I don't know if it applies to seniority, but that's something to look into. But yeah, definitely see if you like the company, you're willing to stay with them for a long time, because we're not playing here. We're not about to invest time and money just to leave after 6 months. Nope, it's not worth it. Don't do it. So yeah, if you're one last thing just to finalize everything, if you are planning on becoming a flight attendant and you do your research and everything and you decide to do it, prepare for this to be a long-term career. Don't just go into it out of whim or anything, because you're investing time and money and you definitely do not want that to go to waste. So do that. All right, y'all, we've been here for 3 hours. It's almost time for me to go. Final thoughts and questions before we step out and say goodbye till next week. I hope to do another live next week. Definitely. I want to post one video and do a live every week until I get to the point where maybe I can do more than one live in a week. I heard that some people start with regional airlines and after 3 to 6 months they transfer to main lines. Yes, that is an opportunity for you to do, especially if you're not sure about the job. Maybe you're not really sure. Personally, I like flying on wide bodies. Ever since I started flying as a customer, I've only flown on wide bodies as a customer. So me becoming a flight attendant was the only time where I think I've flown on a narrow body twice out of all my entire life that I've been flying. And that was because I did a domestic trip to New Jersey and I was on narrow bodies, yes. But beyond that, I have never flown on narrow bodies, smaller planes. It's always been bigger planes, wide bodies. So becoming a flight attendant, I started flying on those planes. And I noticed that I don't like small planes. I like bigger planes. So, so that is a factor. So if you want to do regionals fly on smaller planes. So that was a huge thing for me that I did not want to do regional, because I knew that they flew mostly on smaller planes. And I was not a small plane girl. I've never liked small planes. So that's something definitely to consider as well. So that was a huge factor for me. Yes, that was a huge factor for me as well. So you can go that route, but for me, that's still time being wasted. If you ask me, that's time being wasted in the sense that 3 to 6 months that you're spending at the regional, you can spend that at mainline too. But the reason why people go through that route is because I think the regional airline training is not as long as the mainline, because with the mainline, you're learning more aircraft. Regional probably might not be trained on wide bodies. So already you've shaved off 1 week, because our training is 6 weeks, because we spend 1 week on narrow body, 1 week on wide bodies. So if you go to regional and they don't operate wide body planes, then it means 1 week of training is already lost. So training is now down to 5 weeks. And there might be others, their service delivery might not be as elaborate as a mainline service delivery would be. So then it reduces the time spent in training. So if my training is 6 weeks, regional might probably be 4 weeks or 3 weeks or 5 weeks. So that is a thing as well. But I know people go through that route, and some people do it because maybe at the time when they were applying, they did not get into the mainline airline that they wanted, and the regional contacted them. But now that all these information are very public, I will say be very strategic when you're applying. Don't just go to regional, or don't just apply to any airline at all. Find out if it's regional or mainline. Figure out where their bases are and then apply accordingly, because regional pay is low. And majority of the time, the people that complain about flight attendant pay are individuals that are regional airline flight attendants. Because if you're getting paid as a flight attendant hourly pay of $20, $22, $21, $18, $19, whatever it is, like I said, because of the nature of the job, you're not even able to fly as much. Although when I did 110 hours in a month, I made over $5,000. I made, I think, 5,700 and something, almost 5,000. I think it was 5,900 and something, like almost $6,000. And I only did 110 hours, right? But that month, even if I wanted to do more flying, I would have been overworked and overstressed. So you might potentially not always be able to do 160 hours like a typical 9 to 5. However, your pay is high enough to offer you that buffer. The additional pay that you get is enough to offer you that buffer and that boost to get you to the point where, although you're not doing 160, you're doing 110 hours, you're still earning a good amount of pay. So when you go regional and you're making 20 something dollars, if you do 110 hours, let's see, 110 plus, let's say $22, that's $2,420. Let's say you get that additional pay and that additional, your layover pay and all that good stuff, and it brings you to what? 3,000, 4,000. I'm making 6,000. You're making 4,000. And we're working the same amount of hours as flight attendants. So you see where the difference comes in and how the pay plays a huge factor. So that's how that works. So definitely pay attention to those things for sure. Yes, pay attention to that. But some people go through that route just to get their feet wet. If you're 21 years, by all means, test it out. Try it out. And I wouldn't do it because I feel like it's a waste of time. Go big or go home, honestly, if you ask me. Unless you really, because some people don't like big planes. Some people don't like big planes. So they like smaller planes. They like being regional because their responsibilities are lesser compared to mainline and all that. But I'm a go big or go home girl. Like, I'm either going big or I'm not. And I want the situation whereby in the future, if I do want to explore other parts of the world, my job, the airline that I work for, permits me to be able to do so. I don't have to switch to it, because there are people who have worked with regional for several years and literally only switched to mainline because of the pay and the diverse layover destinations. So why not start off by working with that company? That's all. That's my argument. Where are the chats here? Yeah, so that's the answer to that. Like, I definitely would not do it because I feel like it's a waste of time. I'd rather invest that 3 to 6 months with a major airline. And the issue also is that people quit quickly with regional because the pay is bad. And like I said, when you're in training, you're not getting paid. So you're ending up with debt everywhere. And then you come out and you're barely making enough to... If I went to regional, I wouldn't be able to sustain my lifestyle, because the pay would just not be good enough, you know. But if you're young, you're living with your parents, you have no bills, it's perfect. Because if you're making $3,000 or $4,000 a month, and before taxes, mind you, and you're not paying any bills, it's perfect. That's like extra $3,000 money in your pocket, you know. But if you have kids, you have a family, no, you need to go big or go home. Either you're with the American, which is paying over $30, or my airline, which is paying over $30 or something. Like, at this point, if your hourly pay is less than $20, it's less than $30, and you live in like high standard of living states, it would be hard, because even with the $30, you have to be strategic on how you spend. So yeah. It's not about the money, but it's about the money. All right. Oh, what kind of crew luggage do you use, and do you like it? Yes. So for a Tiffy luggage, when I was in training and when I got out of training, I was using my own personal black carry-on luggage that I had even before I decided to become a flight attendant. I did not want to spend so much money until I was actually on the line and I had started flying and I actually liked the job, because already I'm spending money on bills without work and without pay coming in, and that alone is an expense that I'm incurring while I'm in training. So I did not want to spend any additional money aside from the stuff that I bought for training, which were the white shirts. A lot of the clothes that I sent for training were already bought by me because of the jobs that I had been working in the past. And I worked at a bank at some point too, so I had all that attire and stuff like that ready to go. So the luggage, I have Travel Pro now. I got Travel Pro, I think, in my second month of flying. I think I got it in May, June, somewhere in June or towards the end of May. And I have Travel Pro. I love it. I did not get the 4-wheel because I was told the 2-wheel, the the two wheel was stronger and much more durable, and it does look stronger, feels durable. Like if you've watching my live, you would see it in the back here. It's literally right behind me because this is where I keep my flight attendant stuff. It's very durable, but personally I would prefer a 4-wheel, but I wish they had a 4-wheel that had wheels like the 2-wheel. But it's all right because as long as you have a J-hook for your lunchbox and your personal item bag is not super packed and heavy, when you're pulling the bag, gravity takes over, so you don't even feel the weight of your lunch bag, which is on the J-hook. So Travel Pro is good. We do get a discount through the airline. If you go through the site, the Daddy D perk site, you would get a discount when you make the purchase. It is quite expensive. It's like with tax and everything, it's like $200, but it's worth it. So far, it's been great. I haven't had any issues with it. It's very durable. It's very strong. The only thing I'm struggling to get right now is a personal item bag. I do have one that I had like on my own. It's not a travel personal item bag because it doesn't have that flap where you can put the luggage handle through, but I just made a purchase from Away. It's also quite expensive, but I would rather want to invest in something that would last longer now than buy the cheaper ones and have them fall apart. Because when you're flying, you're tugging and pulling and lifting your bag back and forth, and you need something that is of good quality. But I will say, if right now you have a carry-on bag that is black, that has no markings, no labels or anything, your zippers are gold or silver, and it's just black, use it for now until you get on the line and you actually start making money, you actually get settled in, and then you buy a luggage. The only reason why I bought my Travel Pro was because I wanted the bag that I had, that I was using to fly from the beginning, to be a backup bag. My luggage got taken by a passenger at some point when I was flying. Yes, a passenger took my luggage. So and then that scared me. So I was like, you know what? Let me just get the Travel Pro now, so that just in case somebody takes that one and I can't find who took it, in the meantime, while I wait to get that back, I have a backup luggage. Because just because your luggage is stolen doesn't mean that you can't go to work. Work still goes on. Operations still goes on. So yeah, I like the Travel Pro. It's good. I don't like their personal item bags though. Their lunchbox is fine, but I ordered a LifeWeight lunchbox, which was like $30 something from Amazon. I think it's LifeWeight or something like that. I think it's LifeWeight. Yeah, LifeWeight. But you can get a good lunchbox from Amazon. Travel Pro's luggages are quite on the pricier side, but my carry-on, for sure, I got it from there because it was durable. Plus, it has a warranty and they can change the wheels and stuff for you for free too. So, yeah, it's cool. But yeah. You saw that video. Oh my God, he took the whole bag. And I was confused. I was like, your luggage has your oxygen in it. How are you breathing right now? How are you breathing right now? But that was an experience. So that scared me. I was like, oh my God. Because the only thing I have in my carry, that's another advice though. Don't keep things like your passport and your phone and your driver's license, your wallet, your keys in your carry-on. Always keep those things in your personal item bag, because even if you put your carry-on in the bin and there's no room in the closet for your carry-on, at least your personal item bag is close by. That's something that is easy for you to keep near you and on you. So make sure you don't keep, because when they took my luggage, I didn't really care. It was just that it had my iPad in it. So now I'm planning on getting a personal item bag that I can actually put my iPad and stuff in. So if you take my carry-on, all you have are toiletries and clothes. That's fine. Eventually, if you get it back to me, that's great. I have my phone number and everything on it now, so they can contact me. But I have that luggage also as backup as well. And people suggested air tags and stuff like that, which I will get eventually too, once I get the personal item back, because these luggages are expensive. Like this is like almost $200 with tax. The personal item bag is almost that same amount, but it's better to invest in the good quality ones, because I've bought like 3 personal item bags and they were all around like 30 something dollars. So that's like almost $100 already. If I had spent the 200 on buying a good one, it would have been better off. So that's where we are too. So definitely we do get a discount. So check our website, the perks website for the discount for the Travel Pro for sure. Also, thank you for your time. You're welcome, Joseph. Thank you. Thank you for joining the live too. I appreciate you guys' support. We've been here for like 3 hours, so it's been a long time. Atifi said, you also don't want to memorize the regional airline commands and words, and now when you come to mainline, it's messing up with you. Yes, we have some of my classmates that are having a hard time with that now. That's true, because you learn the commands from one airline, you go to the next, it's totally different. There's a change somewhere. The process is different, and because of how automated and robotic the training is, you don't want to go through the process of memorizing something and then having to unlearn it just to relearn a new one. So that's definitely true. And the other thing also is that if you don't want to remember something, don't try to forget it. That's my advice. And maybe you can share with your classmates, because I kept telling my classmates, the more you try to get your brain to forget something, the more you remember it, because your brain is exerting time to go look for that thing that you're trying to forget. So if you don't want to remember something, just don't think about it. And that was the issue that I had with some of my classmates. They kept on talking about what they had learned. And the more you're talking about what you've learned, the more you would remember it. So it's definitely an issue. But yeah, we had people coming from other airlines that struggled a lot. And honestly, the airline companies would prefer you come with a clean slate, because it's easy to condition you than somebody who's been conditioned already. So that's another way to see it. So if you're thinking you need to get flight attendant training before you apply to become a flight attendant, it's honestly not worth it, because it's better for you to come as a clean slate. So it's easier for the airline company to condition you into learning their process and stuff like that. So so yeah, it's better to come clean with no knowledge of anything. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was able to ease my way through it, because I had no knowledge of anything. That's when people ask me like questions about the content, and I tell them it's not necessary. It won't make any difference if you know what you're going to study or not. It won't make any difference at all. Just go clean slate and move with the pace. That's all. Trendy Rebel, maybe you should get an yes, and put in your luggage. Yes, I do plan on getting that once I get my luggage situation sorted, because those things are expensive. Between my carry-on right now and my personal item, I'm like almost $500 right now. So they can be really expensive, but they're good quality, and I do want to do this job long term. So I would rather want to have all the luggage I need to do it peacefully and smoothly. Matifi said, yes, it's so true. Yes, if you don't want to remember something, don't talk about it. Don't try to forget it. Just leave it alone. Because the more you try to forget it, the more your brain looks for that thing you're trying to forget, and you end up remembering it. So just don't think about it. And they kept doing that, and it's always confusing them and stuff like that. And honestly, guys, don't ever underestimate yourself. And I know you're in week 5 right now, but don't underestimate yourself, because during my time, we had people that had been flight attendants before on Doors Day had to do second attempts. I had never done a flight attendant job before, but I didn't have any second attempt. But there were people that had been flight attendants before that had to do second attempts, because they had been conditioned with the other jobs to do something a certain way. And just because they know those things, it impacted them negatively. So yeah, that's definitely true. Girl, see you later. Get out of here. I know, right? It's time to go. Okay, the end. Vernell's closing the curtains right now. We're closing the curtains right now. It's been a long 3 hours and 30-minute live. I appreciate you all for supporting me. All those that stayed through to the very end, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Go ahead on your way out. Just like the video, share the video, and once again, become a member of the channel, support the channel, and join the channel. Thank you so much. Yes, and good luck, Asifi. How do you say? Is it Arif? I hope I'm saying it correctly, but thank you so much for coming, and good luck in week 5. Go. Let me know how door day went. Just find a way to reach out to me. Drop a comment in the comment section below. I'm also on Instagram, so you can follow me there. Let me know how door day goes for you, your experience, and then also good luck on your assessment, and good luck on your final assessment in week 6 as well. Week 6 will be very easy. The final assessment will be easy because you've been successful throughout the 5 weeks. Week 6 will be very easy for you. This final assessment will not be difficult at all because you won't even get time to study for the final assessment. So what you know is what you know. What you've studied during every single week is what you're going to use to answer your questions. So yeah. Thank you so much for joining the live. All the best. Thank you all for supporting me. On your way out, give the video a thumbs up, and I will see you next week, hopefully to do another live. Thank you guys so much. Before I go, let me see if this camera will not be temperamental. Show my face a little bit to say goodbye. Let's see. Okay. All right. Bye-bye, y'all. Thank you so much for supporting me. I'll see you next week in the next live. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for the support.